What's up, everybody? Welcome to PSI Love You XOXO episode 68. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the future class of video games, Blessing Adeoye Jr.
One episode away, Greg.
Well, here's the thing. You know what? Yes, we are one episode away, and I feel like, Blessing, you're on the Games Cast with me. We need to let Tim come in to introduce that episode just to let him have it, because he screwed up episode 69 of the Games Cast.
You get one shot, you screw it up, you're done. You get no second chances. Now we own it. We own 69.
How do you want to celebrate 69, or do you want to discuss
There's only one way.
Oh, God!
Okay, thanks, gotta go. All right, see you.
God! And
you know what it means.
Joining us for a trio to start off your PSI Love You XOXO. He's the one, the only, the blind gamer, Steve Saylor.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Woo. Oh my God, thanks for rolling through today. I'm excited to have you here for a full-blown show where you're not just calling in the last second. Instead, you're on camera at the last second. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I love it when I get a text from you and I'm like, I'm at the train station right now, Greg. But I could be there in an hour. Give me a sec.
That's the thing, So, Steve's on here. We're going to talk about Returnal and difficulty and how that leads to accessibility. That's the topic of the show in a bit. And if you missed it on, I think, Games Daily the last time you called in, we talked about this, that, at the beginning of the year, I guess it's April now, right? Nah, it's May now. Good Lord. You hit us up and you're like, hey, you guys are great about talking about accessibility. You always address it head on, but you rarely ever have an accessibility expert on to talk about it. It's usually, from your stance, and you hope this, that, and the other. And it's good that you talk about it, but you never hit us up. And I'm always like, well, it's always last second. I feel like it's always breaking news. It's always a lot. The way Kind of Funny works is that we figure out what we want to do on the show about 4 seconds before the show goes live. And you were amazing. You were just like, I don't care. Call me, text me. I'll see if I can do it. And today we did, and here you are.
Heck yeah. Yeah. And thanks for allowing us to do it, because essentially, I mean, accessibility is extremely important, and I love the fact that right now, essentially, you guys are kind of like the only ones that are really talking about it on a regular basis when it's not necessarily a trending quote unquote topic.
Sure.
And essentially, I love it that you talk about it, but also it's like I understand that the hard part of it is, okay, accessibility is great, but what else can you basically say? So that's why
a good example, I think, would have been like the Ratchet and Clank stream that we did last week, where it was the state of play, and for a second, they touched on the menus for Ratchet and Clank, what accessibility looks like a little bit, and I think all of us were like, "Yeah, awesome," but none of us could have broken down like, "Hey, this is why this is awesome."
Hey,
right?
I spoke up right away, and I was like, "This is going to be great for trophies. All right, it's going to be great for collectibles and trophy hunting." You know what I mean?
That is also true. It looks like they're emulating the high contrast mode from Last of Us, and
exactly. But I mean, that's I think while that is completely a joke, what I'm saying there, it also has that truth about why we want you on for these kind of conversations, of course, is because everybody uses games in a different way and plays games in a different way. And so we can sit there and be like, that's great. We think that's really cool. But in a very specific conversation, because in general, I want to talk, Returnal's talking about, like, is it too difficult, period? And then also, what does that mean for accessibility? What does that mean for save states? What does that mean for a bunch of different stuff? But we'll get there. Instead, Steve, what I want to start off is let everybody know you have a campaign right now, stevesaylor.net/webbies. What is happening?
So, I apologize. I'm going to bring in some Xbox talk into this.
Barrett, throw him out of the call. It was a mistake. I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing.
This was a secret plot from Mike. Anyway, but essentially, last year, I was invited to be a part of Xbox's ad campaign for the launch of the Series X, and they called it Power Your Dreams, where essentially a prominent university was doing a sleep study where they would analyze people's dreams, but they were able to like set up a sort of know when people are going to slip into a dream, and they're able to ask questions about what they're thinking about, what they're dreaming about. And Xbox was like, okay, well, let's see if we can be able to turn those dreams into actual reality. So they asked me and a few other Xbox gamers to basically get to like experience this kind of dream study and get to like dream about a specific game. And they had me dream about Destiny, which is one of my favorite games. And so that was really cool to be able to experience. And then they literally turned that into a 3D spatial audio story that you can actually be able to listen to with any regular headphones. And it feels like you're in a very like 3D space. And they did that for myself. They also turned in like created a short film directed by Taika Waititi. Basically, if you saw the Incredible. Master Chief Cat or Meowster Chief, that DJing, that's from that short, from that dream. There was also a custom pair of Nikes that was created for Adeoye Beckham Jr. And yeah, they had B of all people. And so essentially, I didn't know this, but they submitted that to that campaign to basically be nominated for a Webby Award, and they had my specific dream as kind of the one to be able to submit. So
That's awesome.
I'm currently up for the social/experimentation and innovation category. Yeah, and it's we have like basically I think like 2 or 3 days left to vote, and we're currently in second place right now.
Come on,
so,
kind of funny best friend. SteveSaylor.net/Webbies. Get over there, get registered. It takes 2 seconds and you can vote. It's fantastic. We wish you the best, Steve.
Thanks. Yeah. That'd be
now,
really
as
cool.
I say, we wish you the best. We are about to possibly become worst enemies, because before we even start the show, last week, X Circle Square Triangle wrote in and said, please rank the best symbols in order of your favorites on the PlayStation console, the sacred symbols, the 4 face buttons. I, of course, was correct and said number 1 is X, number 2 circle, number 3 triangle, number 4 square.
You're a monster.
Blessing was wrong and said number 1 X, number 2 square, number 3 triangle, number 4 circle.
An absolute king among us.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's funny, Barrett was on Blessing's sides, of course. I understand these young bucks, next gen podcast, they got to stick together. But it was Stephen James Oslin who wrote into patreon.com/kindafunny games and said, having been on the wrong side of one of Greg Miller's hard truths before, I understand the denial you go through when confronted with reality. So I am sympathetic to Blessing and Barrett here as they come to terms with the fact that square is a garbage ass button that pales in comparison to the rest.
It's
X circle, triangle, square, #hard truths. I hate to admit that
it's
he's
almost
right.
it's almost as if Greg picks the write-ins for the show.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's almost as if
It's
he's the one who picks this write-in to read at the start.
Bias commentary.
Steve, you've come here. You've come here. You're here to talk about Returnal, but I will ask you now. Please rank the PlayStation face buttons from best to worst.
Okay. I thought long and hard about this one.
Sure.
Number 1, definitely X for sure.
Yes. Congratulations.
Number 2, square.
God damn it.
Facts.
Number 3,
Steve,
number
like,
3
Steve,
circle.
That's what Blessing blurts out.
Number 3 circle. Number 4 triangle.
Now, I gotta understand your reasoning, because square is the easy number 2. I think that is the natural number 2 that anybody with a big old brain would pick as their number 2. But Steve, I gotta understand, like, well, for you, why does square come second?
So generally, squares usually reload in a lot of games. But for me personally, I'm sorry, Greg, but essentially, in order to be able to enable the zoom feature on the PS5 and the PS4, you have to push the PlayStation and the square button. So I use that button a lot to be able to turn on that feature. So it's an accessibility reason why I'm putting square. Otherwise, circle totally would be the number 2.
Shout out to Blessing,
all about action.
Shout out to Blessing, who was playing through a Returnal run up until we hit start. So I saw the face, and then I saw him immediately try square and the PlayStation button to go see it.
Then I realized I have a PS5, and so that wasn't going to work anyway.
No, it does actually. They just in the recent update, they added in zoom feature. Where essentially, if you go into the accessibility settings, you can be able to enable it, and essentially you can zoom in up to like 300 times, and you can still be able to use the PlayStation like within the game itself, but it's generally best for when you're like looking into menus and like in an RPG, because if you're like in a combat situation, you're locked at that magnification and in that spot on the screen. So anything that happens outside of it, unfortunately, will not be seen. So it's generally for to be able to like read stuff or to be able to navigate the PlayStation home screen. But essentially, that's how you can do it to enable it.
That's awesome. Yep. And also, your thumb just naturally goes to the square button when you're holding the controller, Greg.
Christian R writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames with their breakdown. They say best circle will always reliably get you out of trouble, whether it is to dodge out of the way of an enemy attack or exit out of the annoying menu that X or triangle and sometimes square got you into in the first place.
So basically, he likes to cancel people because that's usually the cancel button.
Second best, X. This is the get stuff done button. When in doubt, spam X. However, it will get you in trouble often. Second worst, square. You're cool when they find something useful for you to do, but what you do ever bring to the table that X or shoulder button can't. And then worst triangle. Furthest away from X, and I have to stop the spamming to go to you. Completely ruins my immersion.
It's literally like
you do have to like make an effort to press triangle. It's true.
Yeah, but like square, it's like there's a reason that it's like commonly used as like the light attack or action button. It's because your thumb is naturally going to go there.
Right there.
Peyton Stone writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames and says X because it will give it to you. Circle, because it's the circle of life. Triangle, we are all trying to reach the top of the pyramid. Square, ain't no squares in my circle.
All right, these kids are just trying to be different.
Again,
They're just trying
Greg
to be different.
Greg picked all of these.
Yes, I picked the funny ones and the good things. There's people who wrote entire essays about this. Blessing, you're welcome to go do it. You know what I mean? Maybe if you did some work for this show, if you weren't out winning awards, doing blessing shows all the time, you know what I mean? Hosting games,
Square, you can slash shit with Square in the hack and slash games. You can punch shit with Square in Batman.
Joshua Skeeters is on your side. Square, X, triangle, circle. Square is the very dependable button. You're mashing that button more than X in games sometimes.
Yep.
What a statement. It's always the action button. X is just the one to get you through the UI, as well as the classic jump and select button. Triangle is always a wild card, but a joy to use. Circle is just basic circle. Always back and dash, and games not much else typically.
That's the thing, is circle is usually always the basic option. Like, what is the exciting thing you're doing?
Yeah, it's basic because
like,
it's needed.
out. All right.
This is being like, oh man, I don't like ketchup and mustard. They're used too much. You know what I mean? No, they're reliable. They're there for you. They're doing things.
It's reliable.
Get your
but
habanero pesto out of here. Nobody wants it.
It's usually the same thing, whereas the other ones have more variety because they can expand whatever they want to do because they're the more accessible buttons.
I said this last week. Triangle is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Exactly.
You know, when you press triangle, it can mean anything in any game.
See that you say that, Steve is right there with you. Steve says X, not Steve Saylor. Steve on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames says X, then square and circle are tied, then finally triangle. Triangle is the quote do random stuff button, while the others do real work.
I agree.
It could be a
that makes
attack.
It exciting.
For Persona, bring up your menu.
Sure.
I don't know.
But I like to think of triangle
button.
as like your kitchen junk drawer. There's just all sorts of random ass shit in there. You got you got rubber bands, you got a couple paper clips, there's a pair of scissors. It just doesn't make sense what's happening in there.
I'd be really curious if anyone ever puts like triangle as number one, because if they are, then that means that like that person's working for the Illuminati.
From the ones I pared down to the list here, because of course so many of you wrote in at patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Thank you as always. Ronnie, Thom, and Jordan all have triangle. The dead last one on these last ones here. But I do like this one here from Ronnie. Number one, X. I'm so enamored that back in the PS1 era, my only gripe with Squaresoft's fantastic JRPGs is they were mapped to circle as the primary. Number two, though, I like this one. I think Barrett will too. Square. This is how you punch in Batman. Enough said.
Exactly.
Number three, circle. Japan eventually changed that to the primary, change the primary button to X. So this is like Bone Storm, the video game, after Milhouse discovers the cup and ball. Not as cool anymore. And then finally, triangle. Something has to be last. And this button doesn't hold any lore or affinity in my heart like the rest.
Again, harsh but fair. Like my thing is, I disagree with triangle last, but I understand how you get there. Sure, I understand it. Square, I don't understand how you put that anywhere near last. That is top two easily.
It's a forgotten button you don't use that much. I don't care how close it is.
You use that much. You use Square arguably in some games way more than X.
Inarguable.
Oh,
sorry.
God.
You're getting to the system.
Headache.
If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this is PSILOVEPHOTOMODE each and every week. Blessing, Barrett, and sometimes Steve show up to nerd out about all things PlayStation. If you like that and you want to be a nerd with us, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, where, of course, you can write in to be part of the show. You can get the show ad-free, and you can watch live as we record it, just like Omega Buster is, Joshy G is, and Madeline Stanley are. If you want to be like them, like I said, patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. However, if you have no bucks to toss our way, it's no big deal. You can get each and every episode of PS I Love You XOXO Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. Pacific time, youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe each and every week. No matter where you get the show, thank you for your support. Please consider like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, leave a comment, tell your friends, leave a review, all the stuff that helps it get to other people's hands. We've had some banger episodes. Kind of Funny's on fire right now, Blessing.
It is. I was talking to Tim on KFGD about this. Yeah, in a good way.
Not like a garbage truck on fire we are all the time. I also mean we've been doing a lot of good stuff lately.
But going through the YouTube channel for Kind of Funny Games, and I'm sure Kind of Funny Prime is like this too, but I only check Kind of Funny Games. Sure. It's awesome, like looking back at like the last week of content and seeing the like Returnal first impressions, the Apex first impressions, the KFGDs, the like all the content that we're usually putting out, but also like us firing on all cylinders and it being just, I think it kind of reflects the fact that right now is a very exciting time to be talking about video games, you know, as opposed to earlier in the year where there was kind of that drought, and it's like, cool,
we're heating up. We're heating up.
We're heating up. Like we had to kind of
page because
we kind of had to find shit to talk about, you know, like in the early months of the year. But now it feels like shit is happening and it's making for really exciting content.
We're not pulling any punches. We're mashing that square button, you know?
They're mashing the square button.
God, housekeeping for you. Speaking of cool content we've been making, Blessing and Andy have the best of their Resident Evil 7 moments up right now as a clip show edited by one and only Roger Pocorni. It is fantastic. I can't say enough nice things about it. YouTube.com/kindafunnygames. I was watching it, and in general, like, you know, the streams are fun, obviously, but they're spread out over 3 hours. For Raj to come in and make a 20-minute video of this and then do a bunch of funny edits with it, it's really, really good. And you guys are cowards.
Oh, me and Andy. I thought you were talking to the audience. I was gonna say, yeah, they're cowards for not watching it. Go watch it.
But yeah, I think it's doing pretty well.
I mean, hey, at least you didn't have Brittany Brombacher on, because I had her join me to be able to play the Maiden demo, and she's ruthless. She
oh my God,
ruthless. She will scare the crap out of you without you realizing it. And yeah,
there's a moment in the Let's Play early on where when this is Final Fantasy Resident Evil 7, remember? So the older, the one from years ago now. But it's, you know, where Ethan gets attacked or whatever, and it's really graphic and bloody, and Andy like looks at the camera and Raj zooms in. I was like, this is what you people enjoy? Like, this is what you do for fun? And you want to talk about somebody who's completely twisted, you talk about Britt from What's Good, who just loves these things and plays them over and over and over again and can tell you every piece of lore.
Yes.
If you're like Blessing and don't check the youtube.com/kindafunny channel that often, Jen is pregnant. My wife is pregnant. I am going to be a father, and we have a big old Kinda Funny podcast up about that right now. youtube.com/kindafunny. Podcast services around the globe for Kinda Funny podcast. At the very least, go check it out, because I open with how I surprised the Kinda Funny by telling them, and it's a very good episode and very hopefully educational in terms of what's going on with pregnancy, because there's a whole bunch of stuff we learned real quick people don't talk about. So we're happy to talk about it.
To watch / listen to that one. I've also been watching, this is unrelated but related, been watching a lot of Jane the Virgin recently. Sure. Let me tell you, very good show. I just started watching it with a friend because we were like, yo, we've heard so many good things about Jane the Virgin. That show, not what I thought it was going to be about. I thought it was going to be about a high school girl who like is trying to lose her virginity or some shit. Turns out it's about a girl who's a virgin who gets accidentally inseminated and like is pregnant. And I learned so much about pregnancy just from watching that show. And so I'm excited to listen to the podcast, learn even more.
You say
I actually caught it this morning, and it was very good. You made me cry right at the very beginning, but yeah, you got me. I
love you, Stevie. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you, but you know how much it meant to obviously be able to share that moment with everybody.
No, it was happy tears. It was happy tears. You know.
Now, real quick, who's talking about Jane the Virgin? Has that show been off the air for years?
Probably, yeah. I'm watching season 1 right now.
Okay,
it was the most random of decisions of. I think
that show was winning awards like every year, though.
Dude,
you know?
but it
wasn't a long time ago. I feel like
it ended in 2019. It ended 2 years ago. It started in 2014.
Yeah, I'm 18 episodes in now. This shit is like this show is fantastic. But it was that thing of I was hanging out with my friend Yami, and we're trying to find a show to watch, and Jane the Virgin just came up, and I was like, yeah, what the fuck is Jane the Virgin about? And she described it. And immediately I was like, we're watching that show. That sounds like an amazing premise. We got to figure out what this is about. And now that we're 18 episodes in, we're like, this is a great decision. This show is amazing.
Everybody go watch Jane the Virgin. Immediately, 2 years after it ended, multiple season run. I was like, we got to watch
season 1.
Gina Rodriguez is also really good. And hey, that's not a bad way to watch a show. We just finished Shadow and Bone over the weekend, and I wish that we had discovered that show after it was over, because I need more of it. So
the wait now?
Yeah.
Same thing with Mayor of Easttown. I'm enjoying that. But this isn't a TV show. Be like the PS I Love You XOXO Patreon producers: Omega Buster, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, Casey Andrew Elliott, and Tom Bach. Today we're brought to you by Gabby and Canva. But for now, let's start with topic of the show. Great job, Steve. See, that's how you know Steve's a true kind of funny best friend. He's just there. He's ready. Bam. Mm-hmm. Of course, as we already talked about, is Returnal too hard? Is that okay? We're going to start at IGN, where Rebecca Valentine, and it still seems so crazy to say Rebecca Valentine, IGN. And I love writing the little abbreviation Reb at IGN because it's 3 letters each time. Congratulations, Rebecca Valentine. We are very happy you work at IGN. I think you could find a better partner to date, but we're not about that right now.
God damn.
Wow.
She dates
Great
Imran.
show with violence today.
Housemarque's ambitious PS5 exclusive roguelike shooter Returnal is out today. And while it has received plenty of praise, including from us, IGN of course, for its haunting atmosphere, clever story, and shooter action, it's also sparking discussion about its considerable difficulty. And now the game's director has weighed in too. On Next Gen Console Watch, which is IGN's great show that Damon does about what's going on with next gens and stuff like that, game director Harry Kruger and marketing and business development director Michael Haveri, of course, friend of the show, both affirmed that Returnal's challenge stems from Housemarque's arcade roots. Housemarque has historically incorporated arcade systems and styles in its games since its origins in the 90s. And while it declared years ago after Nex Machina that arcade is dead, Housemarque clearly isn't abandoning that spirit in its newer titles. Quote, "We started development 4 years ago, and I don't think the vision has changed that much. Housemarque games are known for their, let's say, challenge. There's usually a difficulty to them," Mikhail said. Nex Machina, for example, you can go through the game on easy, and you'll never get to the last level. And then there's other unlockables and so on. So there's an easy-to-learn but hard-to-master mentality at work there. Kruger agreed. "Without a challenge, we don't feel like you can have that strong sense of accomplishment, you know? The closer to the verge of frustration you get, the bigger the feeling of triumph when you do eventually prevail." He added that while Returnal does have more traditional difficulty options, Housemarque wanted players to feel that every new run was completely unique. Hence the roguelike formula, which allowed for a lot of unpredictable swings in how a session might play out, even with difficulty options in place. Quote, "So, as we were saying before, if you take one too many gambles, you get a little overconfident. You might end up digging your own grave, so to speak," Kruger concluded. "But if you play a little bit more conservatively, try to play it safe, you can kind of tune the difficulty of that particular session to your desired skill level. So we're hoping that can act as a pressure valve for the times that you hit an impassable obstacle. Next time you try them, there will always be something a little different. Something gives you a little bit more of an edge so you can overcome that next time." Blessing, we spent all last episode pretty much talking about Returnal, how great it was. You, of course, had beaten it. Me and Paris were here singing its praises, even though we hadn't rolled credits. Have you still been playing it since then, Bless?
Every now and then I've been trying to go back to it because there's stuff to do after you actually beat the game, and I've been trying to complete that stuff. And I've been thinking about platinuming it, even though the more I play it, the more I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to platinum this, because there's an element... There's an element of randomization in the path to platinuming it, because it is a roguelite and the rooms randomized, and you're essentially on the platinum run, you're essentially trying to explore every room and like find the hidden shit that's spread throughout the maps of Returnal. That's kind of making me go, this is way more difficult than I thought it was going to be. But I'm still playing it. We'll see if I get there. But I've been revisiting it a little bit. I've been playing another game at the same time, and so I've not had as much time as I'd like with Returnal, but I've still been having fun with it.
Steve, you've come here, of course, over on your YouTube channel. You've put up the accessibility review. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about Returnal. What do you think of Returnal?
So, Returnal, I have like a love-hate relationship with it.
Don't we all?
Yeah. Essentially, it is difficult, and it is really hard. To kind of put in perspective, for my playthrough, I put in over 8 hours, and I died probably about like 25 plus times. Mm-hmm. And I have never been able to get past the first biome. I made it to the boss there once, and I've never been able to get back to it again. Essentially, there are some accessibility options that are there that are actually pretty decent. There is obviously a wide variety of subtitles. You can be able to increase the reticle size, and you can be able to remap the controls. And then if you are not able to use the adaptive triggers, you can actually be able to go to a more standard control scheme. But then you can also remap it even further if you wanted to customize it. And so there are definitely some things that are there that do help. But I think the problem with that is that preset difficulty. Now, I'm not one to basically, I know that there's been an argument about, well, these games should have an easy mode. I'm not going to basically say that, because that's kind of been the sort of the talk about it. But I go a step further. I don't think that easy mode would have fixed this, because essentially easy mode is part of an accessibility option. It's not the thing to be able to fix it. I kind of use or think about like Demon Souls in a way, because I reviewed that as well. And the problem with adding like an easy mode into those kind of games is that essentially it would be like a crowbar into the gameplay itself. Essentially there is like a kind of a language that you have to learn in playing these games, that essentially you have to, like, as a player, you're supposed to learn how to be able to speak this language and become fluent in it. And that's how you're able to complete the game. The problem with that as a concept when having a preset difficulty is that there are disabled players that physically cannot comprehend that language and can't learn that language fluently because of some physical or mental barrier that prevents them from doing that. And that essentially is where we hit a ceiling when it comes to a preset difficulty. Sure. So but I also don't want like an easy, normal, and hard mode in it, because I think having a static difficulty kind of negates a kind of what the challenge that they're saying in this article. I would say I would love to be able to have like something like an adaptive or a dynamic difficulty, where it can be able to change as you go.
Sure.
I know EA was trying to be looking to patenting something like that, but I'd love to be able to kind of see that across the board, or having what was really great in games like Celeste, an assist mode, where you can customize how many, like what weapon level you can be able to start off at, or how many ethers you can be able to get, or the speed of the game, or how much damage you can be able to do with your gun, or against damage against you. Like, being able to customize that allows us to be able to customize our own difficulty that works best for us. Because having 90 plus minutes to be able to like complete one full run, that's, I mean, if you're able to do that and you have the tenacity and the skill level to be able to do that, that's awesome. But for a disabled player, sometimes that time is doubled. Like, it takes us double the time to be able to complete a game. So I think like 2.5, 3 hours to be able to complete one run. And that can be very tiring. That can be very damaging to those with motor disability or fatigue like myself with my eyes. And I probably am at this point, I'm probably not going to be able to play this ever again unless they add in a future update, like an adaptive or an assist mode.
And I think, help me out, or I guess answer this question. For me, and what I want to ask you is, how hard and how difficult is it, I guess, to make this case or have this conversation? Because I feel like when it first started, and it's very much what we're talking about, of like, you only know what you know. And so I remember when it was Demon Souls and when it was Dark Souls and when it was, there's not going to be a difficulty change in there, because these games are meant to be punishing. This is part of the game. This is part of the challenge. And so for me personally, and so many other people I know with, best intentions, but not thinking through it, right? It was that idea of like, oh, okay, cool. That's what that game's meant to be. That's what that game is, and that's what the developer vision is, right? That's what the developer's vision is for it. So even though I don't want to play that, or it doesn't seem like something I'd be into, God bless you, go have your fun and do whatever you want to be, right? I feel like that conversation originating outside of the accessibility conversation set back the accessibility conversation. Because I feel like people like myself, I always talk about using Kind of Funny in all our shows as, my own personal learnings. Like, that's where my head was at, of like, oh, well, cool, that's the developer's vision, so they should be totally allowed to do that. Not like there's like video game cops or something like that. But like, that's what they want to do, and that's how they want to do it. Of course. Never thinking the fact that I'm taking that privileged position, right? Of like, okay, cool, that's not the experience I want to have, so I'm not going to play those games. When the people I feel like in the accessibility community who are that game is now inaccessible to are having that thing of like, no, I would love to play that experience. I just can't. I physically can't. So why not give me those options? So is that too broad a stroke, or is that accurate? Do you think how it was or has?
No,
been?
Definitely. I mean, this is something that we in the accessibility community have been talking about for a couple of years now. Pretty much, I think that really kind of stemmed from when Sekiro came out, and there was the controversy of like adding an easy mode into Sekiro. And essentially that topic came up where it's like, it kind of goes against an artist's vision. And we kind of would disagree with that in that regard, because accessibility should never compromise your vision. Accessibility will allow you as a developer to be able to essentially make it so that more people can be able to play your game. You want to be able to make it a financial success. So there's that. So you want people to be able to play your game. And essentially, like I kind of use the example of, because we in the accessibility community, we want a challenge. We want that same challenge that everyone does when we're playing a Souls-like game or Returnal or something like Celeste. Like, we want that, but there are some barriers that are in the way that prevent us from doing that. And so I use the example of, okay, so imagine you're playing like one of your favorite games, and you can play it because the game allows you to be able to do that. You're able to hold the controller. You have pretty good eyesight. You can hear the game pretty well. You're able to do that. Now imagine being able to play that game with a blindfold on, or playing that game with earmuffs on, or try to be able to play that game with one hand tied behind your back, or two hands behind your back. That challenge is now exponentially increased because now you have to figure out how to be able to play that tough game, but with all these barriers in the way. And all accessibility does is it unties your hands. It basically takes off the blindfold, takes off the earmuffs. And then now we're at the same equal level when we're now at that challenge level you know what? That one boss in the second biome of Returnal, that was really, really hard. But I was able to get through it by doing this. Like, we can be a part of those conversations because that challenge was still there for us.
Sure.
And difficulty modes and settings and stuff like that, essentially, that should be part of an overall accessible experience. You have to think about accessibility from the very beginning of the development process.
Ground up, right?
Yeah, because you have to basically assume that not everyone is going to be able to pick up a controller and be able to just intuitively be able to play it. So you have to think about, okay, what other ways can other players be able to use this or play this in this particular way? That way we wanted to, the way we want to have that challenge. But how can we get it so that more players can be able to play? And Xbox kind of has this saying, and we began saying in the community, where essentially when everybody plays, we all win. And that's essentially what we're kind of be able to get to, is that when everybody plays, we all win. Because that also, like I said, can lead to dollar sales. We saw that with The Last of Us Part 2. There was more disabled players that were able to play The Last of Us 2. And actually, people have told me that they bought a PS4 specifically so they could be able to play The Last of Us 2. And so that already translates into dollars spent on a game if you have accessibility options. There's like 50% of the world has a disability, and I think like over 200 million gamers in the United States alone, or in at least North America, have a disability. So that's 200 million people that a developer can be able to reach and be like, hey, our game's accessible to, like, as accessible as we can be able to make it, and that can basically open up to an audience that they didn't have access to before.
Yeah, I think The Last of Us is a good one to bring up, because we've had talks about The Last of Us remake on this podcast, and how we're in a place where we're like, well, do we need a Last of Us remake? You know, I personally wouldn't. I would love a different project to come out of that studio, but I remember after having that conversation, I think it was Brandon Cole, who reached out to me and was like, hey man, like I hear what you're saying, but think about it this way, right? Like, if they could put out a Last of Us remake that has all the accessibility stuff from The Last of Us Part 2, like, think about how much that opens that game up to people. And that's a thing that I think we often don't think about as much, because folks like me or Greg might not think about it from that perspective, because we don't have those same barriers in the same way of like both me and Greg were able to play The Last of Us Part 1, you know, without having to worry about it too much, or without having to turn off certain settings or turn on certain settings to make that work for us. I know for me, the thing that really changed my mind, or not changed my mind, but changed my way of thinking when it comes to easy mode versus accessibility versus all this stuff, was during the Sekiro conversation. Because I remember the whole thing being about easy mode, and easy mode, I think, was a big way of reducing the conversation into something that was different from the heart of it. Because I remember being on the side of like, oh, but like, you know, because at the time I wasn't playing Sekiro. Now I'm a big fan of Sekiro, but at the time I was like, well, Sekiro isn't for me, right? Like, if Sekiro is too difficult for me, or if I don't enjoy it because of that difficulty, then, you know, it is what it is. I'll just go play a different game. And the people that enjoy Sekiro for its difficulty and a lot of stuff, go for it, enjoy it. And the thing I was missing, like the piece I was missing, was the idea that if accessibility isn't about people being able to play an easy game, it is about folks being able to experience that same difficulty that I want to experience in a game, right? Especially now that I beat Sekiro and I beat Bloodborne, and now that I beat Returnal, right? Like, I love these games so much. You know, I'm all about these games, but for many folks, like they're just not able to play them. And the question is like, how do you get those people to be able to play those games? And so to the question of, is Returnal too difficult, right? Or is Returnal too hard? I think for me, the answer is no, but how do you open up that difficulty to more people, right? Like what I think the assist mode in Celeste was the big thing that opened people's minds up into, 100%. Okay, what is a way we can make this work, right? Like Celeste, I don't think had an easy mode, correct? I think it was just the assist.
It had
mode.
a bunch of options,
where you can go in and just tweak a bunch of stuff. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Steve, where it's like, yeah, what if you could make it so that you can dash quicker, or enemies' health bars you get set to a certain percentage, or like what are the options that you can make available to players so that they can go in and tweak enough so that they're able to play, so that they're able to experience that game.
And here's the thing too, is that essentially we're all going to need these kind of settings at some point, because we're sorry to say this, but essentially we're getting older. And essentially there's going to be certain things that like your eyesight's going to start to go, your reflexes are not going to be as fast as you were in your early 20s. Mm-hmm. I mean, sorry, Barrett and Blessing, but that's going to happen.
I'm never getting old.
I got eye problems all the time, so I know very well.
Okay, Peter Pan. So essentially, yeah, like we're all going to need these settings, and these settings are go beyond just for people with disabilities. Like they will help you, like as we grow up, to be able to still enjoy these games. And that's why I was like, at least when Housemark kind of said that they're going back to their arcade roots. Unfortunately, if you go back to your arcade roots, essentially that means that essentially no one with there was no accessibility in mind at all with those games. And that's kind of a hard kind of area to be able to kind of go back to. And so essentially like these kind of like, we want to be able to play these kind of games. I want to be able to play Returnal. I really do. I think the lore is really cool. I mean, I really do want to figure out what that whole astronaut and why is there a random house in the middle of this thing? Like I want to like know what how the story unfolds, but unfortunately, it's just because of that barrier that I'm hitting, I'm not able to get past it physically, and so I'm now gonna either have to wait to be able to watch the full playthrough on YouTube or on Twitch or whichever.
Yeah,
and that's hard because it's like I feel like I'm on the outside and I'm like I can't get to be a part of it. Yes, please.
Blessing's put his hand up. I'm like, no, I'm waiting to say something here. We got a great conversation going. Like, no, that's, both of you guys have stumbled into stuff that I think resonates, and I want to call it out, is that, again, the Sekiro conversation, and then again, Celeste was for me the changeover when it was no longer easy, normal, hard, difficulty, right? Where you really started to understand it. And I know, there has been a stigma, in our lifetimes, because I always talk about it, I'm lucky enough to have grown up and have games grown up with me or grow up with me. And so we're still in these moments where, it's funny, I talk about this all the time, Steve, where you're like, oh man, we're all getting older and we're all slowing down and we're not gonna be able to play certain games. And I don't think it's coincidence that as our generation ages up, you're seeing more and more options like this get created, because it is that idea that I fully expect to be in my 60s still playing video games. And yes, I know that I will be slower than I am now, and I'm slower than I was at 20, but games will have matured with me to a point that I can still do that through this. And I really do think that switchover that you're talking about with Sekiro to Celeste is the first time you saw it, because I think I was in the same camp as you, Bless, where, and maybe I'm thinking of Souls or whatever, but stick with me of like, of course, that game's not for me, and if that wants to be hard, of course, go be hard, do whatever you want to do. And then Celeste being a game that is hard, that I was playing and had all these options. And did I use those options? No. Am I glad those options are there for other people to play them? Of course. And it was that idea of like, okay, cool. Here's this toolbox, this suite to allow as many people to enjoy this game however they want to. And at no point does the fact that, I never finished Celeste, I got to a room that's too difficult and put it down and never picked it back up. Do I hear somebody say, oh, I beat Celeste on God mode? I'm like, you're not a real gamer. And they're like, you didn't even see the credits, so you're not a real gamer. And I'm like, none of that shit matters. That's all shit in our head that we're hung up on, in the same way, like, our friends at What's Good, right? Talk about baby mode, right? Because I'm sure for years they had to eat shit when they said they wanted to play on the easy difficulty or something like that. And it's all that's falling away, and it's making for these necessary conversations to make people put it into a different perspective. Because another one for me that I always go back to, and this is something from working with able gamers that I years ago now, but was a light bulb moment for me. If I remember being in college definitively and being in a GameStop, and I forget why this guy was trying to upsell me on some deal they were doing at GameStop, and I was with my roommate, and they had the smaller controllers for PS2, like the for smaller hands or whatever. And the guy literally was like, "Oh, you have a girl over to your apartment, maybe." And my roommate's like, "Well, you think this guy's bringing girls over to his apartment?" Which was a great dig on me, but was the whole thing of like, that's how people think of when you're not in an accessibility state of like, oh, a smaller controller, a different kind of controller for kids, girls, and I'm sure there's something in there like that or whatever. But in reality, like, so many different forms of controllers exist so that different gamers can hold them, whether it is that they have smaller hands or they have one hand or they have, like any number of other issues. And so like, as we start having these conversations and, bubbling these conversations up to the top, I think it is so important. Blessing, back to you. I'm sorry. I know you had something to say.
Yeah, I think Steve hit the nail on the head talking about how we're all pretty much going to need accessibility options, or we all can use accessibility options. I think it was a show I did with Steve that was about Cyberpunk 2077. I think it might have been in a different one, but Steve, I think it was you that had mentioned that like subtitles is an accessibility option, and so many people use subtitles. I use subtitles for pretty much most, if not every video game I play, just because it's an easier way for me to take in information, right? Being able to have that double reinforcement of being able to read and also hear, because I lose attention all the time with this shit. But like, think about how many people use that, right? Think about like, I think a way to kind of internalize this is to understand the idea that accessibility is for everybody, and it is about options. It is about creating as many ways for people to play as possible, because people come in all shapes and sizes, right? We're like, all of us here are different. Like, there are so many different types of people that play video games, and so how do you widen your base as much as possible, right? And like Steve, you mentioned being able to, like, at the very least, right, you're able to sell games to more people that way. But I think at the very most, you invite a bigger group of people to be able to at least experience it or try that thing out. Like, Steve, I think I've seen you also talk about like Xbox Game Pass, and I know this is a PlayStation podcast, but I'll talk about it anyway, right? Talk about how Xbox Game Pass is a great way for people to try out games, you know, in order to understand if they're able to play that game. That is a form of accessibility. Like, accessibility comes in so many different forms. And to the Returnal conversation, there's been a big conversation that's broken out over the last week about save states. That's been a big thing, because in Returnal, you're not able to save mid-run. Like, there are certain things that'll say, like, if you collect ether or collect a permanent item or whatever, like, that stuff will save, but you can't checkpoint your run. And so if you get to the second biome after an hour and a half and you want to turn off your console, or your console crashes, or you want to go away, you will have to start from the beginning. And I know for my playthrough, that was a problem every now and then, because my game crashed in my 30 hours. My game crashed on me twice, which is very normal for any game, but became a bigger deal in Returnal because in those runs, I was like past an hour and a half in, and I was making really good progress, and so that sucked. There was another time,
many people have written in on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames with their reviews of them, and most are really positive, but just about any negative they do, the ones that do call out negatives, are the fact that it crashed on them.
Yep, exactly. And I've seen there are other reviewers who I saw out there that are like, yeah, my game crashed on me twice. And again, for any game, two crashes over 30 hours, not bad. But when you lose 3 hours of progress, then it becomes a fuck. Well, how much time did I waste? Could I beat this game in 15 hours? Like, but instead I'm here at hour 25 trying to recapture the magic of that run that I lost. It becomes a bigger thing. And another thing for me was there were probably two other runs where one of them, my PlayStation had a system update. And so when I turned my PlayStation to rest mode when I was 45 minutes into a run, it decided to immediately do the system update because I had that setting checked. And that part of that is on me because I had that setting enabled. But I had that setting enabled because in any other game, that wouldn't be as big of a problem because I would just start from a checkpoint.
And this has been an ongoing conversation that you're talking about. And Housemark did put out a tweet, quote tweeting via a Reddit thread about this very thing, saying, "We hear the community and we love you all. Nothing to announce now, but keep playing and enjoying the challenge as you can." So they are aware of it. And I think that, one of the big things that I've seen people bring up is like, oh, well, it could be abused. You know what I mean? That you could have a great run, you could do a save, and then when it goes bad, reload that save and come back.
Reload
and it's
for
like,
the boss.
And I feel like, well, yeah, but there's workarounds for that, right? Where it can be I think a one-time save that you make the save and then you bounce, and then if you ever use it, it's just gone or whatever. And I know that there'd be cloud uploading and yada yada, but out of all the all that we're going through, we're getting literally back to what we're talking about with accessibility and with baby mode and etc. Of like, who the fuck cares? Play the game how you want to play the game. Are we really who? I understand. I totally get Housemarque wanting the arcade roots, and I think they do a great job with that, and I get that, and I get that. Greg Miller, get that, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that breakthrough moment. Does it affect me if someone in Tucson, Arizona does not enjoy that, but really wants to play this as a third-person shooter and wants to have one save, which I really doubt they would, that they try to go? No, like, we're talking about a very specific weird case, I think.
Yeah, and like Bloodborne has that too. Like Bloodborne, you can save before a boss, upload that save to the cloud, and reload that save. If Bloodborne can allow you to save scum, Returnal is going to be fine with it. You know, like there might be online leaderboard stuff, which seems to be more so for the dailies. I don't think they have that for just regular runs of Returnal. But even if that's the case, like you can make it so that, hey, if you save your game, your online leaderboard for that run is off. You know, like I think that's the way to do it if you really want to preserve the integrity of that. There are ways around that. Like I think you make a really good point, Greg, of like, if somebody in Tucson, Arizona, who I have no idea who that person is, if they're doing it, it does not affect me at all.
And you're both absolutely right. And essentially, yeah, being able to save a game is definitely, it can be included in sort of the accessibility conversation. But I mean, I'll even bring it closer to home to you, Greg, because you're going to experience this at a certain point. Imagine, okay, you're playing Returnal and you're about 2 hours in. And
I've had 2 or 3 beers, and this fucking kid comes in. Yak. Look at this thing.
Well, not even that. Okay, you're 2 hours in. Your baby's here, and you got to stop and basically go take care of your kid. And basically, are you not like? And then you're not able to go back into your game because like you had to take care of your kid. Same with even subtitles. Like, okay, you want Jed to be able to have a nap, but you'll take care of your boy. But it's like, I have to have him right beside me in order to be able to play a game. But you don't want to disturb him because he's about to fall asleep, like take a nap. So okay, you turn on subtitles, you turn on all the the deaf and hard of hearing stuff, just so that you can be able to play the game, and it's not going to be able to disturb anybody that's trying to be able to sleep. Like there's going to be those incidental accessibility things that are going to happen in your life that you may not even necessarily think about. That these options will help.
Yeah, and I mean, even I think as simple as comfortability too. Toward my run, trying to get to the final boss, you know, like my runs could last anywhere from an hour and a half to up to like there was one run I had that lasted like I want to say 3.5 hours to maybe 4 hours, and that's an atypically long run for Returnal, but it was one of those situations where in Returnal your runs toward the final areas, or toward ladder areas I should say, get quicker and quicker because you're unlocking shortcuts and you're unlocking items. And so like in the first biome you can unlock a melee weapon that'll make it so that you can break certain walls, and that makes it so that you can get to certain places quicker, and then also you won't have to fight the first boss. But in one of my runs, I'll say midway through my experience with the game, I was having a great time. I was killing it. I was very powered up, and I got through the second biomes boss, and then like I pretty much blazed through the third biome with no issue. But that made it so that my run was longer because I wasn't using the shortcuts, and I was having just an elongated run for that reason. I was probably 3 to 3.5 hours in, and I was terrified of my game crashing. Like that was a feeling that persisted throughout the rest of that run, because I was like, what if it crashes here? What if I have to start from the top? I put in so much work and I'm doing so well. And the existence of a save feature would do so much for comfortability, right? Knowing that I'm good. I think that kind of falls into the conversation, along with so many other things that make games either easier for us to experience, better for us to experience, or more comfortable for us to experience.
Well, that's the whole thing. Blessing, Tim said it, so I'll dust off and say it. But like, what is Next Generation all about?
Comfort? I forget.
Convenience.
I was like, fuck, what was the thing?
Thank you, Barrett. I knew you would have. And like, that's what we're talking about here, right? The one and only my Italian meatball, Brian Altano from IGN.com, tweeted over the weekend, I am very excited for Returnal, but reading that the average run can last 90 plus minutes and there is no way to save midway aside from rest mode makes me really wish PS5 had Xbox's quick resume feature. Yep. I'll work around it, of course, since the game looks awesome, but still. And it's like, exactly. Like the fact that that's not even there in this way, like it's none of the like, and I shouldn't speak out of turn. The question has been asked: is Returnal too difficult? Steve Saylor, the blind gamer, is Returnal too difficult?
It's difficult if you're are not able to progress. I would say for me personally, yes. But for anybody, like it's just when you're kind of in that accessibility spectrum, it could definitely be difficult depending on where you're coming from. But for me personally, I will say yes, Returnal is too difficult.
I feel like the conversation we're continuing to have it isn't even about the difficulty of the game. It's about the lack of options. It's about the lack of convenience. That's please correct me, Steve, if I'm wrong. I feel like that is what's too difficult. It's the fact that it doesn't feel like it has all the modern conveniences of a game, all the modern options of a 2021 game. And that sucks. I don't think it's enough that like I feel like when you have a tone deaf developer come out and be like, fuck you, we're not putting an easy mode in, right? Like Housemark's comments here, I didn't get that from it. I get where they're coming from, this arcade thing, yada yada yada, but I still feel like it's that a game lost in that mid section of what we're talking about, where between the Sekiro and between the Celeste, where you're not fully grasping what people are talking about. And again, the quality of life to it. And you can sit there and be like, well, yeah, but like we want it to be an arcade thing. And like, I get that, but I have to imagine there's a way to be able to save so that yes, if your thing crashes, you don't lose it all. And that also you can't game the system. Again, though, if you want to game the system, okay, who cares? Yeah. This is what cheat codes were all about back in the day. Like there's so many things.
A good thing to point out too is like not everybody, to the accessibility side, right? Like not everybody can play a game for 2 hours straight. You know, like you know, there's the thing of people being busy and having babies and having kids and all this stuff. But I'm sure for people with disabilities or any sort of thing that they're dealing with, sitting down for 2 hours straight playing a video game might just not be in the cards for them, which means that they cannot beat Returnal, which sucks. And
I would say too is that Returnal is more accessible than say like other games that have a preset difficulty. There are definitely some very good things in there that could potentially help other disabled players, and they might be able to find like, you know what, this game wasn't really that hard, but it like had this option that I could be able to like do it. Whereas like say like another game that has a preset difficulty didn't have that option and they couldn't be able to play that. So it had like I wouldn't knock it 100% because it does have like it has more accessibility options than other games. But it's just for myself and for even like Courtney Craven, Can I Play That? We both got a review copy of the game and we both couldn't be able to play it. And Courtney's deaf and hard of hearing. So we both weren't able to do it from two completely different disabilities. So it's not to say that disabled people can't play this game, but you're definitely going to have a more difficult time just because there's not enough options there to be able to cover and make it more accessible as possible.
Yeah, I think I from what I know of Housemark as developers and as people, right? We talk about friend of the show or whatever. I'm very fascinated to see how they're going to react to this because I would imagine save state stuff is right. They've got to be working on that. They made that comment. They see the reaction to it, and again, I'm not getting the vibe, and I'm very much reading into these quotes in this tweet without having any conversation with them. I'm not getting the vibe of them hackles up like, no, fuck you. This is the vision of the game as much as like, okay, cool. Let's take that under consideration. Let's see what we can do with it. And I wouldn't be surprised if, as I assume this is a hit for PlayStation and it is selling really well on PlayStation 5. We'll have to wait and see for numbers. But as I would assume it is, I would think that as you get down the line 6 months from now, a major patch that is offering abilities to slide wouldn't be out of the question. Will it actually happen? I don't know. But Christian R live in the chat here on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames writes, my brother won't touch it because he doesn't want to spend the money on a game that is probably too hard for him to complete with joy. An option for him to soften it would get Sony an extra $70. And like there is that real conversation to it of not dumbing it down you just be money grubbing, but to dumb it down to get into more people's hands. And dumb it down is also a horrible way to put it, but you understand what I'm talking about. Yeah. You know what I mean? Give you the option to customize your experience because like I saw, a friend of the show, Trevor Starkey on Twitter this weekend be like, cool, I don't like Returnal. I'm glad that people like the challenge of it. I'm about to throw my controller through my very expensive TV. Like this isn't like, I don't want this kind of experience. And there's a lot of gamers out there that I'm sure see us talk about this. And I think honestly, if I was on the outside and it was going to be that I was still working at a newspaper and it was my $70 to put down and I saw this conversation around it, I would be like, it's not a game for me. Like, and because like I'm just not usually the roguelite person, right? But playing it and enjoying it and having those aha moments, I'm like, oh my God, this is such a game for me. But it's back to what you were talking about with Xbox Game Pass, right? Of like, how do you take that chance? I don't want to take a $70 gamble on a game that people are saying is really hard and makes them angry and I can't save in the middle of.
Yeah. And the worst part about it, like, even if you do spend that $70 and you find out you're not able to play it, unfortunately, as of right now, PlayStation's refund policy is you can't get a refund like if you've already downloaded the game. It's basically like it's just you're not non-existent. You can be able to appeal it, but it's on a case-by-case basis. And so that's why Game Pass like is great, or even PlayStation Now, if they're able to like kind of modernize it and kind of make it a good competitor for Game Pass, would be a good option, because then it allows us to be able to have like a whole bunch of different games that we could be able to play. And if one doesn't work for us and we can't play it, you can delete it, download another one, or stream another one, and you're good to go. And without any really a huge amount of money loss. And then that sort of that stress of trying to be able to play this really hard game can kind of go away. It's like, you know what? This is not for me. Delete it. Try a different game and wait for another update to be able to download this later. Like I even kind of give the example, say Hades, another sort of roguelike. It can be difficult at times. It has but it does have a shorter runtime for than Returnal does. But it did that one thing that I actually was able to play it and able to enjoy it. Was they added essentially a mode called God Mode, where it would give you a little bit like kind of an extra like a defense boost every time you die. And I love that, because essentially that's an assist mode that was kind of built into the game for those like, okay, this is still a challenge for you. Enable this, and it kind of adds to the narrative of the story that I really, really liked. And I was able to enjoy that. So if there was something even as small as that, like an assist mode in Returnal, I mean, I would be able to play this and finally be able to understand why the heck is there an Apollo astronaut trying to be able to chase me around.
Steve, can I ask you an ignorant question?
Sure.
So in everything we're talking about, right? And it doesn't have to be Returnal, but we'll use Returnal as the example here, since it's what we're talking about. If Returnal was to say, even from the start, we want more people to play this, so we're putting in all the assists from launch. You can do all this stuff, but there is a trophy attached that is beat the game without using any assists. So it'd be a pure playthrough. So basically, if you were somebody who needed the accessibility options to play it and beat it, you would never be able to get the platinum. Would that be an okay solution, or would that also be problematic? And I know I'm also asking you to speak for the entire accessibility community, which is never never possible, but in general, from your experience.
No, I would say if you are someone that does like to be able to hunt for trophies, yes, that definitely would be a problem. Because then they'll always have that one trophy that you're never able to get for the platinum. And yeah, essentially it really does depend. For myself, I wouldn't care, because I'm not probably going to be able to platinum that game just because of other sort of skill-based trophies that are in there. But you also don't want to be able to have a game that's like has options that you can unlock by either paying for it a microtransaction or unlocking it later on in the game for like a special option. I kind of use example Ghost of Tsushima. There is the ability to be able to have a more defined highlight around a character when you go into sort of like stealth mode or ghost mode, and that's great. But you have to get further into the game in order to be able to like unlock that skill. When you have that, that's kind of difficult for someone to be able to kind of just be able to play it. So yeah, when you're locking features like or locking a certain achievements based on for accessibility, that's something that is generally, at least with the accessibility community, kind of would say like probably not a good idea. It's not bad, but it's not a great idea.
Yeah, it's because I think for the longest time, like in my head, that was always my like, oh well, how if I'm a developer and I'm like, no, the difficulty is what this is all about. And we want to, whatever, separate who really played our game, which would be all these people. This guy sounds like a horrible person, this developer I'm making up. But if it was like, do you do that? But then it's the same idea, right? I saw over here, Nika Ash said inaccessible trophies should be a separate list, like The Last of Us Part 2 did, right? Like that'd be a way to do it where the platinum's still totally obtainable, but it's there. But again, we're just going back to such a dated perspective on video games where we're talking about the fucking e-penis bragging rights. So if you beat this game, but it's difficult. So I'm proud that I beat it, or I'm proud that I play. Why you put in the work to get the platinum wherever you got it,
It's tough to get into because I think a lot of the conversation often comes back to artist intent and whatnot. And I think it's one of those things where I I always play games based on how I think the dev wants me to play the game. And so if there's a normal difficulty option, usually I'll always pick normal. Or if it's a game like Bloodborne or Returnal that doesn't have difficulty options, I'll just play them as is. And I'm playing Bloodborne with the idea that, all right, this is the experience they want. Bloodborne is difficult because it's from software and the world is supposed to feel oppressive and all this stuff. And so I'm fine playing it that way. But I mean, I think I don't have a problem with a like dash recommended option if that's how you want to get around it. So you can have all these other options that are like, hey, you can play this game however you want. This is how, as developers, we envision this game playing or being played. But I don't even know if that's a good solution, right? Like I think people are going to interpret it differently.
That's what they did for Celeste. They told you it's like, okay, we have this specific experience, but if you need help in or accessibility options, we have this assist mode that's here for you. That hopefully you can be able to enjoy this game in at least in a way that we hopefully be able to intend it. And that's the thing. Like a lot of people say, oh, well, this game is not made for you. Like like the Returnal or a Souls-like game or whatever, they're not made for you. Well, no, you're missing the point of like, there are people that want to be able to play these games that are like, these are the games I love. I love watching them. People stream it. I love people playing it. I want to be able to play it myself. And like, these are the games I want to challenge in these games, but I have a disability that prevents me from doing that. Why would you want to be able to lock that person that wants to be able to do that? Same with even like a trophy. Like they're gonna be disabled players that want to be able to get that platinum, that are on that trophy hunt. And if you lock that down, and someone's not able to get that one trophy to be able to get that platinum, that's something that's like you're locking that player out. So it's the whole artist intent kind of thing. You're already locking down people, and that's never a good thing.
Yeah, you shouldn't ever think about locking someone down. The artist's intent for their art probably isn't great. And I really want to lock people out.
It's like my intent is for you not to play this game. It's like that's never. I don't think that's ever the thing.
And, similar. Let's talk about artists' intent. All right, a lot of people would say, podcasting, it's an art, right? And so we, of course, on Patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, when you're watching the show live and everybody's chatting, they're using we do it on a private YouTube stream, which I thought was very much like the Twitch chat, but it turns out it's a little bit more intense than that. So Ryan Pawala Higgins said, screw trophies anyway. And so I timed him out, but then it didn't go, it didn't like show right away. So I timed him out again. So he's been timed out for 600 seconds and I can't undo it. So Ryan, sorry, my intent wasn't to lock you out of the show. My intent, of course, was to defend PlayStation trophies. And you should just know that you shouldn't talk shit about trophies anymore. I think we've all learned a valuable lesson here today about that. All right. Sorry, Plus. I got one question here before we get to some ads. Let Steve go about his day. This is a question I like for us talking about Returnal, but then also, Steve, I want to know from your perspective with games. Peyton Stone writes into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and says, what's good, PlayStation Bash Brothers? Returnal is the first roguelike that I have ever played. I've played about 4 hours over the weekend, and I'm already hitting the point where I'm telling myself, all right, I don't think I want to play this anymore. The game is gorgeous, it plays spectacular, and the lore is interesting. My question is this: am I being too quick to move on because this is a genre I've never played before? How many hours would you recommend I play until I officially set the DualSense down for this game? Blessing, let's start from our perspective, people who are, playing a lot of Returnal, reviewed Returnal. How long do you think before, if you've never played a roguelite before, are you going to say, okay, this isn't for me?
I mean, I feel like 4 hours is a pretty good amount to play. Because by an hour in, I was like, oh, this is my shit. I love this right here. And, like comparing it to, I think I want to say my first experience with roguelite probably was Rogue Legacy. And even in that game, by an hour and a half, 2 hours, I was like, I'm into this. And by hour 3 or 4, I was like, I am addicted to this. If you put in 4 hours and you're like, I don't know if I'm feeling this, I'd say it's probably time to move on. Maybe return it. Like, I don't think Returnal. I don't think I don't know. Like, I don't think you need to get to Biome 2 or Biome 3 to know how you feel about that game. I think it's a pretty upfront game to kind of understand and get what it is.
And it's like I was talking last week, right, where I had that aha moment. I was enjoying it from the beginning. I was enjoying the gameplay of it. I was enjoying getting better every run. But to finally have that breakthrough, get the melee, okay, now it's opened up and kind of positioned how I think of the map and everything else in the gameplay flow. Like, if you're not having that kind of moment somewhere in there, and I'd say, in the first 4 hours, like, don't feel like you have to push yourself to do that. Like that's, remember, video games are supposed to be enjoyable. Maybe not always fun. Maybe they're supposed to make you cry. Maybe they're supposed to incite, though, the correct emotion from you. And life is too short and your gaming hours too few to be like, well, I hate it gets really good 18 hours in shit. None of that's the way it is. If you're not enjoying the loop, if you don't enjoy the gameplay loop of Returnal, maybe set it aside and go away. But for Steve, with you, my question was, how long, especially from an accessibility point, do you give a game of like you're talking about doing accessibility reviews on your YouTube channel? Like how do you approach that conversation? Is this game for me?
Yeah, when it comes to reviews, I generally try to be able to play as much as I possibly can. And I'd say I usually try to be able to put in at least 10, hopefully 15 hours before I can be able to, like, depending on the review embargo, like if I have time to be able to finish it or not. Like that is sort of a decent amount of time. I mean, I spent about 8 and 10 hours for this. But I would agree with both of you in regards to like 4 hours can be a good enough time to sort of allow you to kind of at least get, other than if you're not able to get to a second biome, you might not know sort of like what the future challenges would be. And that's also difficult to kind of gauge within the 4 hours if you're having trouble with it. So I would say, but also as well, like because you're spending $70 on a game, is 4 hours enough time to spend that amount of like money on?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the whole thing. We go all the way back to the conversation before, right? Of just like, like this would have like that for me, the $70 conundrum, man. Like, am I going to be scared off by it? That's why I think, you have to listen to so many different reviewers and podcasts and read stuff and try to engage with as many people on the internet have similar tastes to you to then make that decision for yourself if you're going to get it.
And that's generally how I sort of go about when I'm trying to be able to find out about a game. Is I will go to like you guys and IGN and GameSpot to sort of like, I have like the certain people that I enjoy to build. Okay, you have at least similar taste to me, so I can at least know, okay, these, like, I'm going to be interested in finding out about these games. The problem is with that, at least regards on the disability side, is there's not that many reviews, if at all, that cover accessibility. So that's something that we kind of, what I would love to be able to see change, is that accessibility is part of reviews of games in the future, because then that's a lot, that's a lot of money to be able to spend on a game. And like, it's $70 where you are, but at least here in Canada, it's $100 to be able to get, and that's a lot to spend on a game for only spending 4 hours in.
Yeah. Steve, did you catch the Ratchet & Clank State of Play?
I did. Yes.
How do you feel about how they handled it? Like, do you feel like they showed enough in terms of accessibility, or do you wish that stuff was more available?
They did two things that I was technically three things that I found was very awesome. They have a reputation for good accessibility. The fact that not only the original Spider-Man, but Miles Morales had amazing accessibility options, and the fact that they actually added those same accessibility options that were in Miles into the remastered version of Spider-Man. So they already have a reputation for that. But then also they added that as part of the state of play a month before the game comes out, which is huge. But then also they said that they were going to be talking about that, about accessibility at a later date. So that means that we're going to be able to get more in depth about what accessibility is going to be available in the game, which is like so huge, and not a lot of games do this. Like, we all talk about, of course, The Last of Us. And full disclosure, I did consult on it, so I was one of the consultants on it. And but we didn't know about like, even though I knew what was going to be in it publicly, no one knew about the accessibility options in The Last of Us until 2 weeks before the game came out. And that's too short of a time frame for anybody to be able to kind of think like, okay, I'm going to spend the money to be able to buy this game. Thankfully, it worked out in Sony's favor, Naughty Dog's favor. But essentially, like, we need to have more of stuff like that state of play, and what Insomniac was doing is that more information we're able to have, because then it allows us to be able to be part of the hype. It allows us to be able to kind of be in that sort of like, oh man, I'm now like, because I've never played a Ratchet & Clank game ever, and now I'm excited to basically, like, I got it for when it was the PS Plus game, or it was a PS Plus or Play at Home, which I don't want to do.
Play at Home.
So I have it, so I'm now excited to be able to go in and try that, and now I'm excited to be able to play this in June. And I'm like, because of that, I'm like, yes, Insomniac's good for accessibility, and then also B, they were able to like talk about it, and I got to see a little bit of what was there. Believe me, I was screenshotting all those that really quick menu overview. But yeah, I'm going to be able to play this game because I know that there's going to be accessibility options in there.
I'm not shocked is the right word, but I guess I'm I'm predicting, we'll say, how about that? I'll go this with the conversation, that in the next, I would say 3 years, but even that feels long. You're going to see sites like IGN and GameSpot get on this, because I think it will be the thing of, as working at IGN, right? It was always like in my day, it was go out and get exclusives. It was, I want more. It was against, when I originally started, against the other channels, Dunham telling me, hey, get exclusives for the PlayStation channel, so we have more than what's going on with Doug and Xbox. But I can't imagine, for accessibility settings becoming more and more prevalent and people wanting to get that word out more and more, I don't understand why every IGN first, and this is not me taking a shot at McCaffrey and IGN first, but in terms of like, we need a content rollout, Game Informer and their cover stories, you would think that the accessibility report would be such an easy beat for just a Tuesday to drop of like, here's what you can do in this game. And I think right now the reason that's probably not happening is because not enough devs at the moment are doing what we're seeing with Insomniac and Naughty Dog, right? And really getting in there and making something that is more than, you can increase the text size. Like, I think when you see everybody start to really get on that and understand it's about more than easy mode, I think then you'll see that stuff happen, and then hopefully the conversation gets better about it. Because for us, it's like what we're talking about, right? Where they throw it up during State of Play and we're like, oh, that's cool, that's rad. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, that's what we'll talk about probably, I guess. Like when we get to the review, will we talk about that? We reviewed Returnal and we didn't talk about this. And, I thought maybe it would be better for a follow-up conversation. But how do you get into these conversations without having hands-on from people like yourself, Steve, that are actually, experts in the field?
That's kind of, we in the disabled community at least want. The folks that I've worked with at Can I Play That? We're kind of one of the main sites that do cover that, and we would love to be able to see more sites be part of that and have us included in these conversations, which is exactly what you guys are doing with having me on. It's like that. This is exactly what we kind of have been wanting. And I think it's good. You're right. I think it's definitely going to happen. Naughty Dog and The Last of Us definitely opened up a lot of people's attention towards accessibility in a huge way last year, and we're definitely going to see that more and more. But we're already seeing studios even starting to kind of like really do that. Ubisoft is like one of those studios that basically I will trust their any game that they come out with now that will have a really decent amount of accessibility options. Like, not a lot of people talked about Watch Dogs Legion or Assassin's Creed Valhalla last year when it comes to accessibility, and they had the same amount, if not more, accessibility options than The Last of Us did, and some of them actually were even better than what The Last of Us had. And so, like, there are studios that are like Insomniac, like Naughty Dog, and that are really trying to be able to push this forward. And it's going to become news. And so essentially, like, if these sites could be able to like jump on it now, then you're already going to be ahead of the curve, and you'll at least be able to, when this becomes part of the new cycle, you already will have that kind of in place.
Okay.
You guys are doing a good thing. I
was going to say, Cowhand Fudsha in the chat says, kind of funny should do it. That would be awesome. Maybe we will. Maybe we do that. Maybe I start pinging everybody and I'm like, hey, tell me your accessibility stuff. And then I just bring in Steve to talk about it. And there you go. You got a little show video there. 5 minutes of talking about it every time for every game.
I'm
Ubisoft,
down.
PlayStation, listen up. Xbox 2. Nintendo, not you. I'm kidding. Nintendo, get in the car. We're going to do this.
Get in the car.
Nintendo's
We're going
one
to
of the ones
Disneyland.
that need that conversation the most. But.
I know, right?
Yeah, they do. They have what we call accidental accessibility, because they design for basically like age demographics, not necessarily for accessibility in mind, but like some of the things they do, I'm like, oh, that actually is pretty good for accessibility, but they have like,
they didn't do it on purpose. Steve, thank you so much for coming through to talk to us today.
Of course, thank you so much for having me, and I love this conversation, and thanks for having me on.
Where can people keep up with you?
You can be able to follow me on Twitter at Steve Saylor, or on YouTube, youtube.com/snowball, or on Twitch, twitch.tv/blindgamersteve.
And of course, he's too humble to say it. stevesaylor.net/webbies. Go over there, vote for him. Let's get him this Webby. Right, Blessing?
Right. Do it.
All right. Steve, you're a gem. We love you so much.
Aw, you guys are great. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, while we get this back to a two-person setup, why don't I tell you about the sponsors? This episode of PSI Love You XOXO is brought to you by Gabby. When it comes to car insurance and home insurance, don't we deserve better? I know I do. I know Tim does. Tim put his policy to the test with Gabby, and they literally, Oh, I'm sorry, I spoiled what's going to happen. They literally stand for Get a Better Insurance. Gabi, Gabi, you get it? Getting better insurance with Gabi means a better price for the same insurance coverage. Who knew such a thing existed? You might, because Gabi's awesome and has supported Kind of Funny a bunch, but I'll get there in a second. They are one of the true comparison platforms with real rates. They give you an apples-to-apples comparison of your current coverage with 40 of the top insurance providers like Progressive, Nationwide, and Travelers, all in one place. Use your current insurance information to get started, and in just minutes, you'll be able to see quotes for the exact same coverage you currently have, and it's free to use. That's what Tim Gettys did a couple months ago when Gabi first sponsored us. Tim took his auto insurance and put it to the test. He went to Gabi, already had his information for what he had, put it into Gabi, got a whole bunch of different rates. Turned out, of course, he already had the best rates, and so no harm, no foul, but it was good to know. And that's what Gabi can do. It can obviously find you better rates, but if it doesn't, because you already have great stuff, cool. You didn't lose anything. Gabi customers save $961 per year on average, and they'll never sell your info, so no annoying spam or robocalls. This is just making sure you have the best deal. Put your policy to the test like Tim did. Get a better insurance with Gabi. It's totally free to check out, and there's no obligation. Go to gabi.com/kindafunny. That again is gabi.com/kindafunny. Gabi.com/kindafunny. Now, of course, I'm Greg Miller, ladies and gentlemen, but this turns out is the Tim ad read section because our next sponsor is Canva Pro. Canva Pro is an easy-to-use design platform that has everything you need to design like a pro. Whether you're a professional designer or just getting started, Canva Pro can help boost you and your team's productivity and creativity. It's a quick, easy, and affordable way to design whatever you need. No matter what you're creating or in sharing, Canva Pro has everything you need in one place, including a collection of over 75 million premium photos, videos, audio, files, and graphics. Plus, Canva Pro comes with time-saving tools that simplify and speed up the creative process. You get all of this and more in just one Canva Pro subscription. Tim is the guy who's been using this at Kind of Funny. I asked him about it, and he said this: I love it. It is such a great tool for creators of any type to take the not fun parts out of thumbnails, logo, graphic design. You can see how we use it in general. Very sleek designs and templates for presentations, social media content, videos, and everything in between. That means all of us can benefit from Canva Pro, because I know I'm using social media all the time. Design like a pro with Canva Pro. Right now, you can get a free 45-day extended trial when you use our promo code. Just go to canva.me/KFgames to get your free 45-day extended trial. That's canva.me/KFgames, canva.me/KFgames. Blessing, why don't you tell me some PlayStation updates?
We got one big ol' update for you, Greg.
One big ol'
update. Discord is coming to PlayStation. I'm going to pull from Shem Gartenberg at The Verge, who writes with a roundup, or with a wrap up of the situation, and says Sony is working to integrate Discord into PlayStation consoles. It goes like this. PlayStation is now partnering with Discord, the popular online communication service, with a promise to, quote, bring the Discord and PlayStation experiences closer together on console and mobile starting early next year, end quote. Details on what that would actually entail are slim, and Sony's announcement just says that the two companies are hard at work connecting Discord with your social and gaming experiences on the PlayStation Network. Whether that means a full-fledged Discord app coming to PlayStation consoles or a more limited integration, like connecting PSN and Discord accounts to more easily chat with friends off-platform, has yet to be announced. As part of the new partnership, Sony is also investing an unspecified amount of money into Discord as part of its Series H investment round as a minority investor. Discord is one of the biggest online communities, especially for gaming enthusiasts, with over 140 million active users as of December 2020. The company was reportedly in talks to be acquired by Microsoft with a $10 billion deal earlier this year, but those talks appear to have ended with Discord deciding to stay as an independent company instead. More information on how Sony is working to integrate Discord into its PlayStation products should be arriving in the coming months. Greg, it's finally happening. We asked for this.
Oh my God. We asked for it, and it was one of those things like, will it ever happen? And then you saw, of course, Xbox, it would look sniffing around and like, oh, that's what's going to happen. All right, they're going to go that way, and that kind of makes sense or whatever. But here it is, PlayStation doing something.
Something.
They are in making a minority investment in doing something with Discord.
How much of this do you think is reactionary? Because we really did just come off of the conversation of are they going to be acquired by Microsoft? Is Microsoft going to get the exclusive on Discord?
I mean, like, you know how much we know about business, which is nothing. I'd imagine it's not reactionary as much as it was already an ongoing conversation. And I wonder if it's one of those things where they started having that conversation with Microsoft to motivate Sony, kind of thing. Because it was that idea, right, that when the Microsoft thing fell through, Discord was like, well, you know, we want to be, or it's the word on the street was they wanted to stay independent anyway. Maybe they do an IPO or whatever. So it could have all just been bravado. It could have all just been, you know, smoke to try to get PlayStation to move, or maybe it is PlayStation rushing in there and doing it. And no matter how you cut it, this is huge. And I really don't. I heard you and Tim talking about it, and obviously I've seen people on the internet talking about it, because this is one of those non-announcement announcements. It's the, hey, we're doing this thing. What's the thing? I looked next year. Next year we'll have a thing for you. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. Next year thing. And so my take on it is that I think that they won't fuck this up. I think this will be a full-blown app. I think this will be the Discord app, just like Spotify, that you open it up and then you go into your game and you have your Discord right there, and you're connected and you're playing and you're doing your thing. I pray that's what it is.
I could see that being the case. I wonder if it's going to be a little bit more integrated, because I think as Sony, you could have just had Discord put an app on PlayStation, right? Yeah. Or maybe that is a lot of work to be able to put work into actually having an app that exists on a console platform, since Discord is available mainly on mobile and on PC exclusively right now. But I think if you were just going to do a Discord app on PlayStation or maybe on Xbox, wouldn't you just do that? Like, wouldn't you just be like, cool, hey, Xbox, PlayStation, we want to do this thing, and what reason does PlayStation have to be like, no, aside from maybe wanting people to use their ecosystem?
They want them to use their ecosystem, right?
Yeah, and maybe that is the thing. But I wonder if this is a
you think this is going to replace like the voice? You think they're going to it's going to become PSN messages and PSN parties built by a Discord? Like, no way.
Yeah, I think if that was going to happen, then that would be, I think PlayStation would legit just straight up acquire Discord, or
and I think you would have had they would have wanted the ships out on that one. I think that would have been from the ground up. I think this is more that PlayStation sees how big Discord is, right? Wants to be in with that, and then alongside the investment, you get them to come over and make the app for you, and I assume be exclusive to you and be able to go there and do that.
I think I could see it being like a little bit of both, though, where it is like the parties that we have as they exist on PlayStation right now, they're very Discord-ish. I wonder if it becomes a thing of, all right, cool, I can add my PlayStation friends into my party the way you can currently, but also if there could be a field where I add in a Discord username, and that includes that person in that same party chat that's my PlayStation party chat. Like that feels very like. That feels like
too much for PlayStation. I'm not gonna lie. That feels the rickety party system it already is.
But like, if you have this planned for early next year, maybe that's the amount of time it takes to do it.
See, I think it'll be is that you have it planned for early next year to just get the Discord app out, and then it would be a year from then. You're trying to integrate it in and do all these different things and make it all work, and have it be that kind of system. Especially when you get into how your Discord. If you don't already, I guess you're gonna have to link. The idea would be that you link your PSN to a Discord, obviously, and then that would have the things tied together. So it could almost be like, you know, you're doing it like how you do when you play Fortnite, right? Where you can add all your friends from either platform or whatever to your Epic Games list or whatever based on who's locked in and stuff like that. I don't know. I hope for that level of convenience as we've talked about with next gen. I just feel like that's a bridge too far for what we've gotten in the past when PlayStation tries to do stuff like this. And it's honestly, I'm fine with that. Like, I just want this built-in system there, right? It's so annoying right now when I'm jumping into a Snowbike Mike stream and playing something with him, like Outriders, and I've got the laptop open and I've got one AirPod in and then I've got the one headset on so I can hear the game, so I don't wake up Jen by listening to anything. Like, having it all ready to go right in there. And Xbox has that workaround where their headset that Paris is always using, right? You can do the thing where you're pairing it to both the system and a computer or whatever running Discord, which again is more complicated than what we're talking about here, and which is what I'd want of just having Discord built in. But yeah, I'm all about this. I love this.
Yeah, this is an awesome and very necessary thing. Like, especially now that crossplay is becoming more and more of a thing, like you're talking about. And I like the thing for me that always gets me is the fact that if you're playing an online shooter and it is a crossplay thing, you want to be able to hear every single thing in your game. You want to be able to hear the footsteps. You want to be able to hear direction and all that stuff. And that's very difficult to do when you have Discord running in the background or some other chat service that isn't on PlayStation natively, because that stuff doesn't play entirely well together. There are a lot of games that have in-game voice chat. Like if you play on, I want to say Fortnite, for example, right? And you are playing crossplay, then
that's all
that
built
chat
in,
will
yeah.
come. Well, that's all built into where you're talking within the game, but it's not the best solution. Oftentimes people don't love the in-game voice chat as a solution because it's usually lower quality and XYZ. And so I'm happy about this. I'm curious to see how this pans out. I'm looking forward to the cross-play future, and let's go. We did, everybody. Congratulations.
Yeah, I think this is such a gamer first move, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to this podcast, video game move, right? Where it's like, this is something that I think would break Poe's brain if I tried to explain it to him, right? Because like, even when it is that we'll go to play it when we were trying to play Fortnite, and one of us was on a different device, and like I can hear him and I'm gonna do this, and like, well, why don't we do a PlayStation party, and trying to describe the difference between a party chat versus Fortnite chat to someone who just wants to play Fortnite. Like, I'm not expecting every PlayStation user, right, to be like, oh, now I'm starting a Discord, and my thing is Poe is great, hashtag 6982 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how people are gonna fucking think about
I try to add people on. I played Valorant last night for the first time, and I wanted to add Andy Tamor and Simon Cardy, and they were all dropping their I guess Riot usernames in our chat that we had set up. And let me tell you, that shit made no sense. It was like, I'm not gonna say the actual ones, but it was like Tamor hashtag Tamor H, and Andy Cortez hashtag Nitro Rifle. It was shit like that where I'm like, why are these the usernames? Like, why the fuck is it like? And I couldn't play with Simon because he's in the UK, which is a whole other thing. But having that shit be simplified in a way that's nice, and all in one place is gonna be real great.
And I think, I saw as we were going and chatting here, Demetrius rolled by, I think it was. And it says, I still don't really use Discord. And I think there's a lot of people who obviously are in that boat. But if it was easy and accessible, I wonder how much more people would. Because it's a good move for Discord of getting people into that ecosystem and using it, right? Like, I had known obviously what Discord was for a long time, but it wasn't until we had to work from home that we started using Discord every day. And I still don't use Discord like most people use Discord, of the ongoing chat rooms and like different message boarding that way just isn't my thing. But I understand it and I know how to pop into it. And I think if you open that up and make it easier for people to get in there, and then they are making their own communities and doing things, you maybe would start using it, let alone the idea of taking what already works with what I like about the PS5 party system this time around, right, is that, and I know some people hate it, but when you make these parties that have all these different people in it, you can then just have that ongoing voice chat room. And like, it's been awesome those times that when Fortnite was really, really popping off, and like Barrett and Joey and Kevin would be playing, and I'd pop on and I'm going to play something else, but I pop into the party room for a little bit and hang out and talk to him that way. And like, when I do go and join Snowbike Mike's room to go, play a game with him or whatever, when you're doing Outriders, it was that thing of, even for me, being like, oh, there's other people in here, but they're playing Monster Hunter. They're watching a show. Everybody's just hanging out. It's just that open line with your friends in a way that I think is really cool. And to take that now and be able to extrapolate that out if Discord gets added to PS5, to where, you're working other PlayStation 5 players, people who are over on mobile, people who are doing whatever on their PC. It's really cool.
It's very awesome. Greg, let's talk about some of our PlayStation picks. Of course, this is where we highlight a few of the cool looking games coming to PSN this week. We got one big hitter in Resident Evil Village. That's coming to PS5 and PS4 on Friday.
Well, remember today on Games Daily when Tim's like, and Resident Evil Village comes out in 2 weeks, and you're like, it's this week. What are you talking
pretty sure it's this Friday. Like, he had me scared. I was like, what? Wait, is it real?
Yeah,
I thought I was going to be playing.
Am I wrong?
Yeah. And so get hyped. Resident Evil Village is coming to you soon. In terms of the actual picks themselves, let's start with The Colonists, which is coming to PS4 on Tuesday, May 4th. Build a new home for your team of robots as they begin a new life for themselves on a distant planet where they can fulfill their ultimate dream, to be a human. The Colonists... I didn't read the full description, so that's actually really funny. The Colonists is a relaxing settlement building game inspired by classic titles like The Settlers and the Anno series. Looks really cool. It reminds me, the art of it reminds me of what was the game that came out last year that was co-op? where you play as biped. It reminds me a little bit of like the
close.
robots.
I almost had it.
Yeah, and so if you like the Anno games and the Settlers games, boom, here's another one for you. You can play as a robot, or you can colonize robots. I guess
to be a human.
To be humans because they want to be humans. That sounds very Nier Automata. Which, hey man, if this game goes down the same roads that game goes down, it's gonna be a very interesting experience. The colonists. We also got Non-Guns Doppelganger Edition that's coming to PS4 on Wednesday, May 5th. Non-Guns is a roguelite action platformer. Battle grotesque creatures, kill quickly to maintain your combo meter, and rescue worshippers to become part of your idle army to buy upgrades. Another roguelite coming to you, and it looks really cool. It's like side scrolling.
It looks like
2D.
It's got. Sorry, yeah, go on.
No,
it's got an art style that reminds me of Downwell. That's what I was going to say.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one to point out. Yeah, and it has kind of like I don't even know how to describe it, like a grungy kind of look to it. And it looks like you play as like these skeletal characters. It has a really cool art style. Yeah. And then last but not least, we got Skate City coming to PS5 and PS4 Thursday, May 6th. Skate the streets of real-world iconic destinations from around the globe. Master combos of flip tricks, manuals, and grinds to set high scores in challenge mode, or ride at your own pace with endless skate. Head over to the skate shop to customize your player and unlock everything else available. I actually played a little bit of this over the weekend. What's up?
Please don't jump ahead. All right.
Oh damn, you're right. You know what? We got a whole.
Those are some interesting picks, Blessing. What you been playing?
I played a little bit of a game called Skate City.
Oh wow, tell me about that.
Yeah, it's a side-scrolling skate game, and I mean that interested me for very obvious reasons. Like I played so much of what was the game I was obsessed with last week? Don't tell me. Skater XL. It was Skater XL. Yeah, I played a lot of Skater XL.
I whispered it
last year. And I just like skate games in general, and so this appealed to me for that reason.
How is it?
Before I talk about it, let me check out an email to make sure I can talk about this game.
Otherwise, this young man is learning. We've all been there.
Otherwise, I'll just talk
Today
about the iOS version.
If you didn't see about it on Games Daily today, they were like, I jumped in to make a joke, and then Tim's like, but what is E3 2021, Greg? And I was like, I don't know. Let me open up the document that tells me what I'm allowed to say.
Looks like I can talk about this game. Yeah, so it's pretty fun. It's a pretty fun game. Like, I don't know how much I'm going to return to it because it very much is like it's not Skater XL. It's not Skate. It is 2D. You know, it's kind of a 2D version of those, but with that, I think you lose a lot of what makes those games fun, which is exploration. You know, teeing up fun lines, trying to figure out like coming across a staircase and being like, okay, cool. I'm going to do a kickflip over that and land into a manual and do a kickflip over the next stairs. Like this game kind of misses out on that. But if you do want a more, I'd say, condensed 2D version of that, there is some of that fun there. I'll also say that the actual controls are very simplified. I think part of that is because I want to say this game was part of Apple Arcade.
It was.
And so it was okay, cool. And then I think
it was like one of the launch games, I think.
Because of that, the controls are just way more simplified. Where when you're holding a DualSense controller, you hold any direction on on either of the analog sticks, and that'll correlate to a different move. And so if you press, let's say, right on the up, you press up on the right analog stick, that'll be like a nollie, right? Or in all the left analog stick, that might be an ollie. And that might not be like the verbatim translation, but that's essentially how each of the moves translate, right? Like you press left on the left analog stick, maybe to do a heel flip or a kick flip or something like that. Way more simplified than the skate games you're probably used to. But if you just want to if you want to play a skate game, I'd say go for it. It was it's been a fun time so far. It's been a nice time waster, I think, to say the least. And it's scratched that itch for me. And so it's been fun for that.
I have a question from the press pool here. So you're saying it's 2D, and then what we're seeing there. So it's like, can you play the trailer again, Bear? So like the camera moved a bit, but I assume that's just the cinematic for this. So is the idea that it's basically side scrolling, and you're just making the moves happen, and if you fuck and fail down, well, hold on. If you fuck up and fall down, not if you fuck and fail down. I don't know what that means.
Hey man,
that sounds like that's a pretty good band name, by the way. Fuck and fail down.
Fuck and fail down. That's actually great.
What does it do? Does it start the run again, or because it reminds me a little bit of that other fucking mobile game where you rode down the thing herding llamas? Shit, fuck.
Oh, that game, yeah.
Remember we played it? It came to PlayStation.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Fuck. Oh, it's right there. Shit, I lost it. I don't got it. But no, the answer to what you're asking is no. Like, you pick up from right where you left off. The game is pretty nice about it, but it does have challenges. And so
the Alto collection,
the Alto collection, yes. The so you can go into like a free skate mode, which will let you just skate as long as you want, and you're basically completing challenges where it's like, do a kickflip over these stairs or do X, Y, and Z thing. There are also challenges, which I've been playing quite a bit of, and those will basically be things like, okay, between here and here, score 3,000 points or up to 3,000 points. And if you score 1,000, you get 1 star, 2,000, 2 stars, 3,000, you get 3 stars. And so it has a mobile gamified kind of system to it. And you're basically doing those, it's not about getting as far as you can. It's more about completing those challenges on certain maps. And so, it like the way the camera pans is mainly just for the trailer. The game doesn't look like that. Like the game has that art style, like the 3D art style, but it is very much 2D.
Okay.
And it's fun.
Okay. But you don't know if you'll come back to it.
No, just because there's so many other things to play. I played it because I finished a game I was playing, and then I was like, you know what, man, I got some free time. I'm gonna go back and play, or I'm gonna try out the Skate City game that looks pretty cool, and it was good for that.
I think I know what you're talking about, right? Because we've both been playing Redacted. We've both been working on a review that you'll hear about soon, and kind of funny. So like Redacted's been taking up all of my time. I assume it took up most of your time as well. Then.
Yes.
And so I'm the same way in terms of I finished Redacted, my play session with Redacted, and I was like, all right, cool. I don't want to go to the next big part of Redacted, and it's time for bed almost. So what do I do? I finally did it. Blessing Adeoye Jr. I lived the dream, and I clicked on it, and I bought Retromania Wrestling on the PlayStation 4. If you've been following, I've been talking about Retromania Wrestling for what feels like years now, but really just weeks / months, because originally it was supposed to have come out a long time ago. Barrett, I just popped a trailer in there. I accidentally deleted it before. And Retro Mania Wrestling is finally on PlayStation after the developer went through all kind of hell of not understanding how to get it onto consoles and what they had to go through. So I started playing that last night. I did 30 minutes of it. I played it, and like as you watch it, it's meant to look like the old WWF wrestling game. Shit, I'm blanking on the name right now. No, this is but this is supposed to look like a Nintendo one, like, you know what I mean? Of like this very basic
NES, like kind
of exactly. So pro wrestling, I guess NES, even that doesn't sound right. Chad, if you remember off the top of my head, let me know, because they talk about it pretty obviously that it's an homage to that. I started the career mode last night and went through it. You play as John Morrison, and since WWE owns his name or whatever, he's Johnny Retro. And there's a whole bunch of different characters, and they're only like 16, and everything I'd heard about the game is true, where people are like, okay, yeah, it's basic, right? Like, this is the idea, right, of you're going through this thing, and, it's strong strike, weak strike, WrestleFest. Thank you very much, Sylvester. There it is. Going through, you have these basic attacks you're going through, and, it looks like an NES game. Sometimes it's hard to, you're like doing your kick or your punch, and you're not lined up on the right thing. So it's there. It is incredibly charming, though. And I played it for 30 minutes last night. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, I don't know how much I'll play it again. And then today, all day, I've been like, man, I'm ready to go play some Retromania Wrestling and screw around. Because, like, that's, where I think wrestling games, the WWE 2K series in general, really got off track, right? It's like when they focus so much on being real. Like right now, if you're looking at it, you see that LMH thing. Like as you build up that meter, those are the kind of moves you can do. So if you are too early, try to go for a very strong grapple move or whatever, you're not going to be able to pull it off because you haven't earned that yet. Whereas this, you have a very clear iteration of what you can do to build up to use your special and stuff like that. And then there's Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer's in this fucking game. Are you kidding me right now? The hardcore icon, the hardcore legend. Tommy Dreamer, hardcore.
What about is Undertaker in there?
No, he's a WWE character, so he's not
worth
in there.
playing. Then
You got the Blue Meanie though. I know you're a big Blue Meanie.
Cena in there?
John Cena's also a WWE.
Damn. What about Shawn Michaels?
No, sadly he's with WWE as well, so he's not in there. The Road Warriors are. You remember
sounds like
that,
a rough
right?
roster.
Who's
Sounds
the
like a rough
wrestler
roster.
that Cool Greg really likes? Sasha Banks. Is Sasha Banks in this one?
Sasha Banks is with WWE as well. Yeah.
What about Bret Hart in there?
All right, so this joke's over now. This joke's over. We're done talking about it. I just literally scratched the surface last night, and it's got the same grapple mechanic that Fire Pro does, which I know doesn't mean much to you guys, but it's that your characters go in, when you stomp on the ground, you have to put in a button press, and it's a rock paper scissors with the person who's grappling against you to see if it works. That for me is still such a foreign concept. I played a bunch of Fire Pro when it originally launched, and then when they updated the saves and when they updated the game, it borked all my saves and all the kind of funny characters I did, and I was so heartbroken I just walked away from it. So I need to get back on that. But first impressions of this are, it is a tiny game. I think it is charming. It is harkening back to an era of wrestling and wrestling video games I really enjoy, and I'm excited to play more of it. I was looking through the trophy list last night, and if I get my head wrapped around the gameplay, it could be a really fun, trophy chase. I don't know if it'd be a full-blown platinum, but there's a bunch of good stuff in there. And there's only a couple different modes. It's very clearly an indie thing, but I think it's got a lot of charm and a lot of character, and I'm excited to give better impressions next week, because again, I'm going off of 30 minutes of tinkering around last night, maybe a little bit more than that. But arcadey, indie, I'm into it.
That's awesome.
Plus, what else have you been playing, or have you had time to play anything else?
Yeah, it's a bummer, because one of my most anticipated games for this year was Nier Replicant version 1. A bunch of numbers ellipsis, and I started it, and it's just been such a busy time where I started it, and then we did the thing where we're like, okay, let's play Disco Elysium for hashtag POC played this, and so I put a pause on it a few hours in, and I started playing that. And then I think I got the code for Returnal halfway through Disco Elysium. So I had to put a pause on Disco Elysium to start Returnal. And then as I was playing Returnal, got another game that I had to play. So I had to put a pause on that. And so it's been this thing of trying to get all the way back to Nier Replicant. Yeah, and I haven't gotten there yet. But I have played the first few hours of it, and I haven't gotten a chance to talk about it at all. But as another reminder, right, because I have to say this every single time because it's always confusing. Nier Replicant is kind of the prequel to Nier Automata. It's the remake to a game that came out in 2010, but in Japan only. Nier Replicant and Nier Gestalt both came out in different territories. They're both prequels to Nier Automata. Nier Replicant, the new one, is a remake to the one that came out in Japan only. And so I started it. It's fun. It is very apparent that it is a remake of an older game.
Yeah.
One of my small complaints with Nier Automata, because I love Nier Automata, but one of my small complaints with it was that at points that game could look ugly in the textures and the environments. I would say that Nier Replicant does no justice to that issue. It is not a game that I don't think you're playing this game at all for the visual fidelity of it. I like the art direction because I think they do a good job with the art direction, but it doesn't look amazing, especially now that I have a PS5 and I've been playing PS5 games. Nier Replicant, the new one, is on PS4. There's not a PS5 version. And so that's been a thing. From where the story has started off so far, I'm very intrigued. I think they start off from a very, really cool place. It has the same level of all right, what the fuck is this world? What's going on? Like that same level of that I really liked from Automata. And it has a similar mode of gameplay where you're doing the hack and slash, you're doing the shoot 'em up stuff. It seems like it's less varied than Nier Automata was with a lot of that stuff, because if you remember, the opening to Nier Automata started off with big set pieces where the camera shifting all over the place. You go from hack and slash to
shmup,
bullet hell to side-scrolling shmup and top down, everywhere in between. Nier Automata was all over the place with that stuff in a fantastic way. Nier Replicant so far doesn't seem to be that, and I think part of that
it's a slower build to get to some of those moments.
Very slower build, and I think a big part of that is it is staying true in a lot of ways to the original game, and so it has it's the same beat by beat. It is very similar. It is almost halfway remaster, halfway remake in a lot of ways, where it is, trying to do, it is doing it is the exact same game as that original game with visual fidelity.
Yeah, visual fidelity and definitely design choices and stuff. I think the story is slightly reworked from what I know is that in the original one, you play as in Replicant version 1.22, you're playing as this brother, and your sister is is sick. From what I understand from the original Nier, at least, is you play as the dad, or maybe I'm mixing that up. But there are some reimagined kind of things here, and yeah, I definitely get what you're saying with it kind of feels definitely like an old game and
dated.
It feels dated, and in some ways it's to its detriment, like you've been talking about. But in some ways, I find it very charming. The vibe of this game,
it is very charming.
I can't really speak to Automata because I haven't played Automata before. This is my first like Nier game actually giving it a shot. The vibe overall reminds me of like a mixture between Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess. Which is like really charming, like especially like when you go into your town, there's like specifically like the same exact rooster crow from like Ocarina of Time and stuff like that. There's like a lot of mixture in between those that I really dig. The gameplay itself is just, I'm starting to get like the person who wrote in like saying they're 4 hours into Returnal and think they want to walk away from it. I think I'm getting to that point in Replicant. I hit 4 hours last night, and it's just getting to that point where I'm just like, I'm not. It doesn't have like I want it to have its hooks in me, and it doesn't, which is unfortunate because I wanted to like play through this and then like play Automata and like get all the references that Automata makes, because like even though this is a prequel, like they're kind of like it's a prequel in the sense that this takes place before Automata. I don't really, from what I understand, there's not like a huge connection. Of, like you can play Automata without playing this one. Like, a lot of people
easily.
did.
You know, like I'm very curious to see the tie-ins, because I know like there's characters like Emil who apparently has a way bigger presence in this game than in Automata. So I'm curious to see what that is. But as far as I understand, and I'm gonna get this wrong because it's convoluted and it's Nier and all this shit. But as I understand it, Automata is based off of like a specific ending from Nier Gestal. It's not even like a direct sequel, really. Which is fascinating. And Barrett, for you, what I'd say is like, man, if you're feeling tired of it, I would say put it on pause, play Automata, and maybe come back to it, because that might I think
I was listening to
having the love of Automata might make you enjoy this game more.
Yeah, I was listening to GameSpot After Dark, and I think Michael Hyam, the homie, was saying the correct way to play these games is play Automata, then play Replicant, and then go back to it and play Automata again.
Play Automata again.
And so, like,
honestly,
I definitely like. I don't know. We'll see where I go. I definitely do want to check out Automata, because it's a game that people have been surprised that has not been in like my kind of library of games that I love, just because I just wasn't at like kind of like the right time for that game for me. So yeah, we'll see. And it just sucks because I want to keep going, because I am interested in the characters and like.
See, that's me too.
And
like I dropped
it's
off
just the gameplay design that it's like, even like, oh my god, they worked in like almost like a conversation of like why there isn't fast travel. I'm like, oh my god, I have to like keep running back and forth between like the seafront town and my hometown, and like it's just so tight. And it like, oh god, and yeah,
like
oh god.
Yeah, like it's like I stopped playing it so I could play Disco Elysium, but like one of the reasons why it was easier for me to also put it down was the fact that I got to a place in the game where they're like, cool, now go do a bunch of side quests. And I looked at the side quests and I was like, none of this shit seems fun right now.
Yeah, it was
like I don't want to go and collect.
You have to go
shit.
to like the local bar and like take like side quests, and then it's like, all right, like this one is like, oh, I want to hear these two sisters sing. Go talk to each sister, and it's like, okay, cool, that seems simple enough. And then like the sister's like, oh well, I only want to sing if I get a like a special drink. They make it in Seafront. If you could go over there and get that drink, like yeah, that'd be awesome. And it's like, okay, that seems simple enough. And then you go to Seafront, and it's like, oh well, I need specific ingredients to make this drink, to do this, and I'm like, fucking
yeah.
Christ,
and they're like, we're gonna teach you how to fish.
Enjoy the story. I do like the fun bit. I do like the fun bit when you have to go fish, and if you fuck up the first couple of tries, it just like goes to black, and it says 2 days later, and it's like,
oh, that's hilarious. I
finally caught a fish, and then the book you're hanging out with, Vice, is like, too bad it only took 278 tries or some shit like that. I thought it was really funny, because yeah, I don't understand the fishing in that game, and I'm just gonna say it. This was one of my hot takes, because everybody talks about how they love fishing in video games. I honestly think fishing in video games kind of lame.
Damn, he said
Here's the thing about fishing in video games is that it's hit or miss. I'll give you that. And then but the reason people like fishing in video games so much is that fishing in real life fucking sucks. You go out there, you don't know if you're gonna catch a fish. You don't know. I mean, go out there and get drunk and do that. You smell. You got sunscreen and bug spray on. You got the fucking worm shit all over your hands, and like inevitably the hook's getting loose and getting you.
This is what I'll say. Cooking in video games is way better than fishing in video games. I heard the conversation that I think it was Greg and Tim that you guys were having about like, why is this always a bullet point? Like, why are they always hyping up cooking in video games? That's because it is slightly fun. It is slightly fun. I'll be the one to say it.
It can be slightly fun.
Cooking in Breath of the Wild was fantastic.
Agreed. Not arguing that at all. You know,
okay.
Cooking mama. Come on now.
Yeah, even like collecting random ingredients, putting them together, and seeing what happens.
Final Fantasy 15. Ooh, baby. Like this is like the beauty shots of the food that your boy would make.
Oh sure, yeah, for sure.
I think that's a way better cooking video games. Always 1000% a better bullet point than fishing video games. That's my hot take.
Understandable.
I also wanted to shout out Apex Legends because I never talk about Apex Legends on this podcast. The new season's happening this week, baby. Get excited! Arenas mode. Go check out my first impressions.
There's no Titans.
I didn't know you were into Apex. Bless.
Yeah, I don't talk about it that much.
Okay.
It's gone now. Scroll by here. I think it was Sylvasis the Slayer had asked if for me Retromania Wrestling was worth the $30 price tag. I don't know yet. My concern last night was like, it is as basic as people were talking about in terms of like the limited roster and stuff. But I just started playing it, and I do have that desire to go back and get good at it and play more of it. But I won't know. So hopefully next week, if I have more time to put into it, I'll be able to answer that question definitively. But again, cute and charming. Blessing,
Greg,
what do you say to our reader mail question before we get to the post show?
Oh, the rare reader mail.
I know, right? I feel like we could easily end it here, but I like giving people bang for their buck. You know what I mean? They're hanging out here. They're watching the show with us, doing all this stuff. Here's a question I have that I don't have an answer for, and I hope you will. AJ Shank writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames and says, does Returnal have a narrative reason to return to the game after you beat the final boss? I really enjoyed how Hades incentivized players to return and continue to go through the game over and over, and I'm hoping Returnal is something similar. I know you haven't had a lot of time to play, and I know we've talked a little bit here and there about it, but we're more of, as somebody who still hasn't beaten it, what's bringing you back? What makes you want to play it?
There is more narrative stuff after you roll credits in the game.
Okay.
Like, that's the big thing. It's fun. It's fun because I don't want to spill anything for people.
Yeah, of course. I don't
like,
want you to either. Yeah,
and it's not like big spoilers or anything, but it's more so like the structure of the game. But basically, after you beat the final boss and you roll credits, there is another carrot on the stick for you to chase after that will reveal more about the story. And so that is the thing that's keeping me going back, even though I'm getting to the point. I was on this podcast. I always forget because we record KFGD and this back to back, and so I'm like, did I talk about this on KFGD or did I talk about it on PSILOVEPHOTOMODE? But even though was it on KFGD the other day? Whatever. I mentioned this to you at some point that like I'm feeling less inclined to like chase after the platinum for it. But even despite that, there is more I still want to do, even if I don't end up getting the platinum. I think that was on this podcast.
Okay. Yeah, you talked about maybe wanting to platinum it. Yeah. Okay, and then here's one while we're here, just another quick one because we're in the Returnal thing. Kamza115 writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames and says, hey, Greg and Bless. Hope you're both doing well. Greg, massive congratulations to you and Jen on the announcement of your incoming Wii 1. With Returnal launching to great critical acclaim and hopefully some strong sales figures, what do you think is next for Housemarque? Could a potential sequel to Returnal be in the cards? Do you see them working on a new AAA IP? Could they possibly Returnal to their arcade roots? Is an acquisition of the studio by PlayStation closer than ever? Blessing, what do you think's next for Housemarque Return?
For Housemarque, I don't think they return. Man, that's gonna be a pun that we use forever. I don't think they're gonna return to their quote unquote arcade roots. You know, like I don't think we see them go back and make new Resogun or new Nex Machina. I think they've scoped up in a way to now they are making bigger games because they put out that whole blog post about how arcade is dead and stuff. And Returnal still has a lot of those arcade elements in them. If anything,
roots,
I'd say,
right?
I'd say Returnal is them finding a way to do arcade on a AAA level. But I think now that they're here, there's no going back. I don't think we're gonna see Returnal 2 though. I don't see Returnal as an IP that you would sequelize in that way. You know, and I think that's an exciting thing because I don't necessarily want each and every studio that is working with PlayStation to only be working on games that'll end up having sequels. I like the idea of having something that is a one-off. Here's Returnal. Cool. We flexed our muscles doing this. Now let's make an entirely different type of roguelite or a different type of arcade game or a different type of IP,
that's what I think is
like a different type of shooter. Like honestly, even when relating back to Games Daily this morning about Xbox's internal reviews of The Last of Us Part 2, where they're like, hey, this is great, but like the shooting and like combat aspects are still not up to snuff or whatever, is that like I do think Returnal is like a rare highlight of great gun gameplay from a essentially like a PlayStation exclusive game, you know? And so like to have that under your belt for PlayStation, I think is really essential. So like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that I'm with you that I think what's going to happen is Housemarque, again, as we talked about on the review and we've talked about all over the place, even though this is not an arcade game, you can feel the arcade influence in it, as they talked about in IGN, right, that we talked about today with Reb. I definitely think that they're not going to do Returnal 2. I think they are going to do a different game that is this big budget, not arcade, but arcade influenced game. Taking those, I mean, this game is finding success, right, because of what's happening at that core gameplay level, which is what Housemarque's always been amazing at. So now what genre do they look at and they want to take arcade influences to or from and make something bigger from? I think that's what they do. And I think that I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility for PlayStation to buy them, but I don't think that they will. I think instead it will be Microsoft and PlayStation in a race to try to figure out who can get them to do something for them.
Yeah, to partner with them. I think that'd be I'm with you. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that PlayStation acquires them, but I do think them working as their own probably for them provides some value, because they do get to have that freedom, and being under a big publisher might be a little bit scary because you have a little bit of autonomy stripped away, and it's probably for them. They probably look at the deals. Like the deal with PlayStation is such a big get because, hey, like we were working on, I always forget the name of it, but the Battle Royale game that we started working on after we said Arcade is Dead. You know, we started working on that, and that wasn't a given. Them getting the partnership with PlayStation is a thing where it's like, cool, we got the money, we got the backing, we got the platform, we get to exist as one of the first party games on this platform. That's huge for us, and for them to continue to get those deals is probably going to continue to be big for them. The thing I will say, going back to the Resogun conversation a little bit, is I think it could be cool for them, depending on what their bandwidth is as a studio and where their values are as a studio, like how much they want to go back to maybe their arcade roots. It could be cool for them to have like a small spin-off team, in the way that for Hello Games, when like they put out No Man's Sky, but then they also put out that game that came out late last year, the smaller indie game.
Yeah, Campfire, the last Campfire.
Well, yes, yeah, to put out something like that, right? Like I could see a situation where Housemarque's like, cool, we're working on our next big project, but in the meanwhile, let's put out like a Resogun 2, or let's put out like a fun small arcade project as like a thing to exist, because we still believe in this a little bit.
If the only way that would happen is if Microsoft, Xbox, Nintendo, Epic came and were like, we'll pay for it, you know what I mean? But I think that like that the reason they were moving away from those games was that, yeah, they're awesome and critically acclaimed, and not enough people buy them. Like, we need to change our focus if we want to continue to be the studio on the size we are, the scale we are. And so I think that you'd see that only if somebody was coming in to pay all the bills and make it. And I just don't, yeah, exactly. And I don't think Microsoft, I don't think that's what people are going to be ordering off the menu right now. They're definitely showing back. I'll be like, what else you got? What other big, I'm using in air quotes.
Yeah, what's your next Returnal?
Exactly. What could be the next Returnal? Blessing?
Greg.
We ask people on this show to go to twitter.com, take screenshots of games we tell them to, and then put them with the hashtag PSILOVEPHOTOMODE. We come through, we pick our favorites, and we show you them here. If you're an audio listener, we try to describe them. Last week I said, hey, Days Gone, of course, is the hashtag. PS, we played this for the month of May, meaning you should be playing it all May, so we can talk about it next month at the beginning of June, just like we'll talk about Disco Elysium soon. I said, hey, for this one, let's get Days Gone started. So that's what we did. You can see right here. The first runner up here is Jim Smith. Jim Smith put in this one of Deacon on the bike. He put in a 4-pack of shots here. This was my favorite of the 4 shots. Barrett, I don't know if it's easy enough to go back to the other one to show other ones, but this one here, as Deacon rides on his motorcycle shooting up into the air, that was my favorite. But then he put in a couple other ones on his tweet, that one of them being that Deacon's on an invisible bike, which is always interesting and fun. Because, of course, if you didn't know, Days Gone, incredible photo mode, tons of options you can go in there and screw around with. Big fan of that.
Yeah, this looks really good.
Next runner-up I picked was Tex, but it's Crytex. Another one here. I love this one because he's got all the shooting stars in the background. You know, just Deacon broing out on his bike there, riding, looking for some freakers, looking for a nest. Blessing. All these references will make sense when you start playing the game. Bless, don't worry about it.
Oh, I know what a freaker is.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. But I like the shooting stars in the background and how spacey it was and whatever. And then the one I chose though is my favorite for the week, ladies and gentlemen, comes from Jordan Watson, and it's this washed out black and white Deacon on the bike chasing.
This is hot.
Isn't it? Yeah, I like this one a lot. And it's got that, they did the cinematic framing for it and stuff. Really, really good stuff.
If you're an audio listener, this is a reason to click over to the video version because this is
come on over.
photo.
Look at the part where
I would make this my desktop
Watson.
Background.
Damn.
If I like Days Gone, if I end up liking that game, this is gonna be my desktop background.
Wow.
For a week.
There you have it. For a week.
Yeah, before
what a benevolent God you are. Blessing, since I picked Days Gone, what do you want to pick for next week's I Love Photo Mode?
Yeah, I know this game doesn't have a photo mode, but I know people will still figure it out anyway. I'm gonna make Returnal the hashtag PS I love photo mode for this. Yeah, PS I love photo mode for this week. And so get creative. You know, I don't mind if there's UI in there because you gotta do what you gotta do, but I'm making it Returnal. Beautiful looking game.
All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's your thing. Go play Returnal, take photos with your share button, and then share them on Twitter with the hashtag PS I love photo mode. And Blessing will go through those next week on PS I Love You XOXO. Remember, if you want to be a part of the next episode of PS I Love You XOXO, it's very simple. Go to patreon.com/kindafunnygames where you can write in to be part of the show. You can get the show ad-free. You can get the show with the exclusive post show we are about to do. And of course, you can be watching live, just like Joshy G was, Ryan was before he got banned, and DZ Rascal 72.
DZ Rascal.
DZ Rascal's out there watching some shows, having a good time.
DZ Rascal, these nuts.
I was going to say it, but I wanted to be respectful of his name. Who knows? DZ could be his actual name. I don't know.
You think no, DZ couldn't be his real name. You think he's his
never
name
know.
DZ?
You never know. You know,
DZ, what's your real name? Let us know. We'll see you in the post show. DZ Rascal 72. I need to know what your first name is.
No, but people usually don't
name.
believe that Blessing's my real name when I tell them, and I'm like,
still
what
don't.
do you expect? I'm Nigerian. It's a very popular name there. Maybe not very popular, but it's a popular name.
There are other Blessings there, goddammit. If you have no bucks to toss our way, though, next week, it's no big deal. Remember, you can go to youtube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe. Each and every Tuesday morning, get a brand spanking new episode that has ads and doesn't have the post show we are about to do. Blessing, anything to say before we get out of here? To the post show?
Next episode is episode 69, and so oh man, I could have made that the photo mode. Oh well, I messed up. Anyway, there's also hashtag PS I hate photo mode.
What? Game?
Wait, what was
your
the photo mode going to be for episode 69?
Listen. All I'm saying is get inspired. All right, Mass Effect. Oh, I guess Mass Effect doesn't come out for what, a few weeks?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Other games have sex scenes. Damn it. Put them under hashtag PS I hate photo mode.
No, you'll never remember to check PS I hate photo mode.
But one day I will. One day I'm gonna go through and be like, "What the fuck, man? People had fun with this one."
We were doing so well, and then we just went off the rails. It all fell apart at the finish line. The goal
Episode 69, hashtag PS I hate photo mode. You know what to do.
Now, here's what I'd like to point out before we go to the post show. This will be the final thing I'll say. DZ Rascal 72 just said, "Yeah, boy." No, what's your name? What does that even mean? He didn't say anything between there about his name. Just "yeah, boy."
I would like to think they're responding to my comment, my addition to the.
I guess so, but it's like, what, ladies and gentlemen? Until next time, we got a post show to do. It's been our pleasure to serve you.